Live on tape from the Spectrum in Philadelphia, it's the Season 10 BATTY Awards. Shandling versus Rogers, Hope versus Hanks, Arthur versus Arthur. Who will win? Learn the answers just as soon as Rick and Mike find a way out of Jeff Goldblum's meat locker and start the Season 10 BATTY Awards. Battle of the Network shows. Join Rick Brooks and Mike Kogel as they explore the TV of the 70s and 80s through hand-picked episodes of their favorite and not-so-favorite series.
Welcome to the Spectrum in Philadelphia. I'm Mike.
I'm Rick. Hello, everyone.
And it is the Season 10 BATTY Awards.
It certainly is. It's the biggest night in retro TV podcasting.
That's right. I'm amazed we got such a big location.
Yeah, very well done.
I mean, sure, it's not a space station or another dimension or whatever, but
it's kind of traditional, I think. I kind of like going back to basics, yet in an elegant way.
Yeah.
One of the finest venues in the United States, really.
Mm-hmm. Does it still exist? I mean, I know we're here, but...
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm trying to think if that one was torn down by... Yeah, boy, well, if the wrecking ball comes during the ceremony, there's going to be a lot of disappointed listeners, so let's hope that doesn't happen.
That could be a problem. But we're excited to be here for another BATTY Awards, and it's going to be chock full of awards.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, Mike, yeah.
In fact, one might call them BATTY Awards.
That would be accurate as well. A lot of awards, and once again, celebrating our past season, and as we always like to remind everybody, we're not celebrating ourselves.
No.
We're celebrating the work that other people did. We're celebrating the television that we covered in this 10th season.
That's correct, yeah. We would never celebrate ourselves.
Perish the thought.
And all of the nominees have been decided by a Blue Ribbon nominating committee.
Indeed, and I happen to believe that they must have had to make some very difficult choices this year with all the great stuff that we covered, but that's what they're here for, and they do a good job. It's controversial sometimes, but they present the nominees, and we, live during this ceremony, will determine the winners.
Yeah, and we have really no say in what they do.
That's true. Yeah, it's totally outside of us. There's a wall. It's totally separated.
In fact, we didn't even choose the Blue Ribbon panel.
No.
Another Blue Ribbon panel.
That's right.
We nominated this Blue Ribbon panel. It's wheels within wheels.
Yeah, it makes your head spin a little bit, but really the focus is on, celebrating things. And also, we should mention, Mike, that a little bit later on we'll be honoring some participants with 2 listener-chosen awards. Maybe this would be a good time to just thank everybody for following us in this season. We've had, good listenership, a lot of engagement, and our Facebook group has grown steadily throughout the course of this season. It's great to see people over there. And for these awards, which we'll get to later, it was mostly some people writing in. You can always write us at mailbag@battleofthenetworkshows.com. or participate on the website, but mostly it was determined by people voting in our Facebook group, our official Facebook group, which is very easy to join. Go there right now if you haven't yet and sign up and be part of the conversation and enjoy 70s and 80s television with us.
Yeah, with that, should we dive right in?
I can't wait. I just something about the venue. I'm tingling a little bit, but I want to start giving out some awards. Let's go for it.
Yeah. Now, I hope, given the venue, that the audience in attendance is polite.
Well,
this is not a hockey match.
No, it's not.
This is not an Eagles game.
No, it's not Extreme Championship Wrestling.
No.
But, I think one thing we can say about the fans around here, they're passionate. And we do like to recognize that passion and celebrate it. And we're passionate about a lot of what we do here. So maybe it'll be a nice blend of things.
So, out there in the audience, enjoy your hoagies. Keep your batteries to yourself.
Yes, I think that's fair. Fair for all of us.
Wasn't that a song?
Keep your batteries to yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Georgia Satellites?
Yes. I think they got some kind of injunction from Duracell. Nip that in the bud, but they had to modify it slightly for commercial radio, but it worked out well. Should we mention, Mike, what happens if usually you and I can determine a winner between the two of us? We do have a certain timer, but should we tell people what will happen if we can't determine a winner?
Yes, we go to a random number generator.
Yes, many of you who have followed us through the previous 9 baddies are familiar with that process, but if not, just be assured that it's the clearly the most fair and scientific way to determine a winner, if we can't determine one, is to go to a random number generator.
That's right. It's really the only way.
Yes. I will admit that it gives a little excitement when it happens, but personally, I don't like to do that. I like it when we both can decide on something. So let's hope we don't need the random number generator. But I'm told that it is ready if we need it.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, that's very reassuring.
And of course, the folks here at the Spectrum will get to see it on the whatever they call the Jumbotron.
The jumbo, yeah. And well, that'll be a thrill for everyone, I'm sure.
Yes. I mean, isn't that, they use that in hockey sometimes, right?
Yeah.
The random number generator.
Yeah.
So we generally give ourselves 5 minutes, but things go how they go.
That's right.
With that, the nominees in Outstanding Youth, a frequent category on the baddies. King Bruce from the Easter Bunnies Coming to Town. Grant Schumacher from It's Gary Shandling's Show. Kitty Pryde from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Laura Ingalls from Little House on the Prairie. Mary Ingalls from Little House on the Prairie. And Willie from Little House on the Prairie. I'm reading it as it's on the page.
Yes, I see that as on the page. I'm kind of surprised that Willie made it. I didn't think he had made it through the process.
No.
Well,
You know, he's full of surprises.
yes, he is.
And Todd Bridges from High School USA.
Okay, well, one of the best things about television is, was it George Bernard Shaw who once said television is wasted on the youth? Well, I disagree with him. I think television is great for youth, on screen and off screen. Looking at these nominees, I'm going to go ahead and eliminate Willie because I was so stunned to see him in this category.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably fair to eliminate him. Other than that, I think Laura and Mary didn't impress me so much in Little House on the Prairie. It was more of an adult-centric episode. So just as my initial reactions, I'm leaning towards... And Kitty Pryde, it was interesting seeing Kitty Pryde in that sort of early, 1981, 1982-ish form. Not too long after she'd been introduced in the comic books, right?
Correct, yeah.
For me, it would be between King Bruce, kind of a controversial figure in that special, Grant Schumacher, who really drove a lot of the emotion of that Gary Shandling episode, and Todd Bridges, who we both so enjoyed in High School USA. So those are my initial thoughts.
I will agree on Willie, and as much as I like Kitty Pryde, she wasn't, maybe not the standout character on that. It was cool to see her animated, especially because they didn't use her in the 90s X-Men cartoon at all. They had Jubilee play that role.
Ah, okay.
Well, although she was front and center in Pride of the X-Men, the animated pilot that you can find on YouTube. I would also eliminate Laura from that episode, but I thought Mary showed a lot of savvy in dealing with their situation.
That is true. She had the plan, and she was the one leading them.
Sure, she led them into a barn that was going to catch on fire at some point, but Laura's contribution was accidentally dropping something.
Right. My initial thinking of that episode, Blizzard was the name of it, was more of the interior scenes in the schoolhouse. And now that you bring it up, I'll give Mary a little bit more credit for those scenes that actually took place outside in the blizzard, where she's practically carrying Carrie, who wasn't much use, trying to get to safety on what was, as we talked about, was an incredibly unrealistically long journey that they had. So I'll give it, maybe I dismissed her a little too quickly.
Hey, you walk a mile in a blizzard in Mary's shoes, and you tell me.
I'm not sure that I could. I am not sure that I could.
As far as, I guess, King Bruce, I mean, he went on a real journey there, didn't he?
He did. He was really kind of a pawn, but he learned not just about Easter, but about how to be a good king, I think.
Yes, and a good person, and to stand up for himself.
Right.
So I would count him out. Grant, as you said, I mean, just his passion for Jeff Goldblum.
Yes, his knowledge of his entire career.
Yes.
Not just the hits.
Right.
But yeah, Grant was willing to advocate for Transylvania 65000 in many aspects of Jeff. He knew dialogue, he knew Goldblum's marital status and personal life, I believe, in addition to being, kind of a sort of a nephew for Gary. Always an important role.
And I believe he also danced, right?
Oh, that's right. Yes, he did.
Played a little Win, Lose, or Draw.
Yeah. It was a good performance for Grant in that episode.
Yeah, and we enjoy Todd Bridges in High School USA.
Todd Bridges playing, certainly, I don't want to say against type, because Todd Bridges is a very savvy individual, speaking of savvy, but Todd Bridges playing like a genius, an electronical and otherwise genius in that episode, who designed a fully functioning robot.
Right. And somewhat standing out in a sea of youths.
Yes, that's a good way to put it, and a confidant for the Michael J. Fox character as well. So, yeah, I was very impressed by Todd Bridges in that. I thought he was very easily charismatic and very charming in that movie. A movie that really needed a lot of likability and charm. Wow. Time flies in the baddies, doesn't it?
Yes.
Whew.
Well, okay, so let's narrow it down. I think I said my piece about Mary, but I felt like someone needed to stand up for her.
No, I think, I'm glad you did. I think I dismissed her too much, but again, I just don't think it was necessarily Mary's finest hour. It was maybe Mary's finest 10 minutes or so in the blizzard sequence, but after Mary gets back into the school, after the kids are safe, the kids kind of disappear in that. And for me, it becomes more about some of the other stuff going on. So that's why I would probably not go for Mary in this one.
Okay, I'm hip.
Speaking of hip, is King Bruce hip enough really to be the outstanding youth? We respected his journey, but I don't know.
Yeah.
There's some issues. It wasn't.
Right. And think about all those other kids in that thing performing adult jobs in Kidville.
Yeah. Well, King is a very important job too.
It is, but
It's not manual labor.
No.
Yeah, I think we could eliminate King Bruce. I don't. I like that we have him in there as a representative of all the youth in that special. But so that leaves us to Grant Schumacher and Todd Bridges, which interestingly enough, it's interesting that the commission used Todd Bridges' real name, but the character Grant Schumacher's name, isn't it?
yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what that says, but
Well,
they're always sending messages somehow.
Yes. Right. In this case, maybe it was more Todd Bridges, the performance that was interesting than the character.
Well, I thought he really lost himself in that character, like to the point where I forgot about Willis as I was watching the movie, which was very impressive because I happened to have different strokes playing on another screen at the same
Whoa.
time as I was watching High School USA. So
Wow.
that's a real credit to Todd Bridges.
What episode of Different Strokes?
It was the. It's funny you asked that. It was the episode where he had an assignment to build something for the science fair, and I think he could only come up with like a volcano. So it was more stark the contrast between Willis and the character Todd Bridges played in High School USA, which made it stand out even more, the performance in High School USA. The more I think about it, the more I lean Todd Bridges because Grant Schumacher he often has a thankless role in that show, and he had kind of an awkward stage where later in the series run, his voice changed and they tried to find other things to do with him. So this was probably actually more prime Grant Schumacher, but he really wasn't my favorite character in the show. I don't have a hugely strong lean, but I would lean towards Todd Bridges, I think.
I can go with that. I mean, I enjoyed Grant Schumacher. I enjoyed that character was there and the performance and sort of that. I mean, he was a kid, but he was just funny. Like he wasn't like a either precocious or serious aspect to the show that didn't fit the rest of it.
Right.
Like he still fit the tone of that show.
Which could happen sometimes. Yeah, and his remarkable knowledge of Jeff Goldblum's career didn't seem at all overly precocious. It just seemed like, okay, this is natural for a kid back in the 80s to follow Jeff Goldblum so much.
Yes.
It's amusing, but
Right.
It's not that remarkable.
We all had our Goldblum.
Yes.
So Todd Bridges.
I think so. Congratulations, Todd Bridges.
Yeah, and to his character.
Yes.
Sam?
Could be. A friend of Michael J. Fox's character.
Yes. Inventor of robot. Friend. That's all his name.
Yes, but what a friend. And what a youth. Wow, what a way to kick off the show. Well, it doesn't get any easier, as I like to say, because we're ready for the next category, and this is always a good one. Outstanding performance as oneself. And this covers a lot of ground, as you'll see as I read off the nominees here. All right, and those nominees are Bob Hope for the Bob Hope specials, Sammy Davis Jr. also for the Bob Hope special that we covered, Gene Siskel from Siskel and Ebert, Roger Ebert from Siskel and Ebert, Jeff Goldblum, as we mentioned, from It's Gary Shandling Show, and Bert Convy from It's Gary Shandling Show.
Wow.
Some of our real favorites in this category, Mike.
Yes, and not Gary Shandling from It's Gary Shandling Show.
That's right.
Pointing that out as a fact. Well, I'll tell you, I have a problem right up front. I can't pick Siskel or Ebert. I could pick Siskel and Ebert, but I would have a difficulty picking just one of them. They're equally strong as themselves. So I must feel like they eliminate each other.
It'd be interesting to know what their reaction would be to that thinking. If they would embrace that or if they would resent that or how they would respond to it. Unfortunately, we can't know, but I hear you on that.
Yeah, I assume it would depend on what period where you're talking to them. I would enjoy seeing them have an argument about that, though. Like, especially with one of them telling the other one that they're not being themselves.
Yes.
Like maybe Gene telling Roger he wasn't being himself when he said he didn't enjoy Batman.
That's right.
You're not being honest with yourself.
Yes.
And I think we've seen better work from Sammy as himself.
Yes, and as himself and as other people.
Yes. So, assuming we took those three out, that would leave Goldblum, Convy, and Hope.
Yes, and this is the actual Bob Hope, not Dave Thomas. We should clarify. People that remember our last season look at SCTV.
So, what are you thinking?
Well, traditionally, this category, it often celebrates people that are guest stars, people that are performing as themselves in something. So I can see why it does feel, in a sense, a little weird to have Siskel and Ebert here just for that reason, because it's their show. I mean, yes, they did a good job being themselves, but they were on Siskel and Ebert. You can almost say the same thing with Bob Hope, who's sort of playing the character of Bob Hope. To me, it really comes down to Goldblum and Bert Convy in this category. Just not Bob Hope's here. Bob Hope he'll get some good material out of losing this category, so I'm not worried about him. To me, it's two great guest stars I'm glad that the committee recognized Bert Convy because he had some kind of sharp words. He really scored with that guest shot in an episode where he could have been overshadowed by Jeff Goldblum, but I think he managed to leave an indelible impression.
I think he did. Now, the question that often comes up in these situations is, did that seem like an accurate portrayal of Bert Convy? Like, was the real Bert Convy that hung up on Win, Lose, or Draw?
Yeah, well...
Whereas Jeff Goldblum, I know I even commented that, he pretty much seemed like exactly how he is even now. Many years later.
That's a good point. I kind of think that my initial reaction to that is that I think Bert Convy probably was that hung up on Win, Lose, or Draw. However, he was probably not quite that hung up on Wink Martindale. So that part of it, where he his hurt at losing out to Wink Martindale when they played at Wink's house, played tic-tac-toe at Wink's house. That was probably more of a heightened version of Bert Convy. I think you're right. Jeff Goldblum was excellent at Jeff Goldblum in this episode, wasn't he?
Yeah.
They were able to build a whole episode around it, and with that episode, as funny as that episode was, as much as we loved it, would it have worked as well with a less quirky yet genuine celebrity?
I don't think so. Like someone who might come up here later, Tom Hanks.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it would work. I think Tom Hanks getting locked in a freezer with Gary Shandling would work. But I don't know if Tom Hanks would have that kitchen and be preparing hundreds of pounds of veal.
That's right. Yes.
Or I don't even know if he would have Bert Convy over to play Win, Lose, or Draw.
No.
I think he would more likely have Wink Martindale over.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, Rob Reiner was one of Gary's neighbors on the show. Put Rob Reiner in that situation, it doesn't quite work either, just for a variety of reasons.
Again, I would enjoy seeing them locked in a freezer together.
Yeah.
I think Gary Shandling locked in a freezer with a lot of options might work. But
yeah,
that's how you get to that freezer.
Yes. That could have been a whole thing years before comedians in cars getting coffee.
Right.
Comedians getting locked in freezers with Gary. I'm sure he'd be able to find the zen of that situation, even with a wide variety of fellow comedians. But are we saying Jeff Goldblum? I'm fine with that.
Jeff Goldblum.
I think that's the choice. Yeah, I like that.
All right.
Wow.
Well, moving on to we're really into the good categories here. Again, if you're not familiar with the BATTY Awards, we have special categories.
We do.
Unique maybe only to this award show. And then later we'll have the kind of categories you might expect. We take special relish in these categories.
Yes, we do.
And this is all, when it's there, it's a big one. And a lot of competition this season. Outstanding hair. The nominees are Bert Convy, It's Gary Shandling Show; Michael Landon, Little House on the Prairie; Nancy McKeon, High School USA; and Gary Shandling, It's Gary Shandling Show.
Ooh, well, I tell you, Gary Shandling was famous for asking about his hair. He needn't have asked many times. It was excellent. And I think it was on point in Go Go Goldblum, the episode that we talked about. I've always been a fan of Bert Convy's hair.
Yes.
There's something about it, and it seemed especially appropriate for game shows. It was great game show hair, but it was also more than functional in guest shots, like on Gary Shandling's show.
Yeah, or Love Boat.
Yeah.
In that movie where he plays tennis.
Yes.
Yeah, and he made the look of the man perm popular years before it was. I mean, I believe that was his natural hair, but
yes,
iconic. And speaking of iconic hair, Michael Landon.
Yes.
So I was thinking when we were doing that episode, I'm like, boy, he's not really going to have any competition. And then the committee came up with this list.
Now, Landon, I believe, dyed his hair pretty early and then started, showing some more grade towards the end of the Little House run. But, I'm not holding that against him.
That doesn't take away from its luster.
Not at all. Not at all.
Bert Convy might have been dyeing his hair.
That's possible. Yeah, that's possible.
Probably not dyeing her hair as Nancy McKeon. Now, personally, I wasn't a fan of this hair, but, it was a little inching towards latter-day Facts of Life hair to me. Like
right.
Big hair, and not as much a fan of that.
A big change from when she came on the scene with the simple ponytail look as Joe on Facts of Life, yes.
I mean, it fit the character.
Yeah, I think we can eliminate Nancy McKeon. Fine hair for the character, but just not a real contender in this category.
For me, I was going to say, sorry to this person who's no longer with us, but none of these people the nominees left are with us anymore. So, but to me, it comes down to Bert and Michael.
I agree. I think Gary Shandling's hair was solid, like I said, very well, but up against two spectacular heads of hair. Now, do we give Michael Landon a degree of difficulty for the hair performing as it did in harsh weather conditions? And sustaining that hair in the midst of a blizzard.
I think we might have to.
Yeah.
I mean, that hair went through so much, just on Little House, just on that episode.
Right.
He did have a hat. but the hat only covered part of the hair.
And even when he took the hat off, the hair was still pretty good too.
Yeah.
He didn't really suffer from hat head. Whereas Bert Convy, he was in more of a climate-controlled environment playing When Those Are Draw. He didn't even go inside that meat locker,
No.
So he didn't have to deal with that.
Do you think Bert Convy, kept When Those Are Draw markers in his hair?
Yeah, I don't know. That would certainly help to be able to play When Those Are Draw.
Anywhere.
Yeah, that would be an advantage.
You're in a restaurant and it's taking a long time.
Yeah, that's right.
Play a little Win, Lose, or Draw.
On the tablecloth.
Exactly.
Just sketch it anywhere. As long as you have a marker and a flat surface,
Yeah.
you can play Win, Lose, or Draw.
Yeah, I hate to do this to Bert twice in a row, but I'm leaning Michael Landon.
I think we should go with Michael Landon. Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, iconic.
Bert's is to a point too, but Michael Landon's hair is.
Michael Landon's hair is Hall of Fame level.
Yeah, okay.
Wow.
Oh, we beat the clock.
We did, all right. Well, if history is any indication, we're going to need some of that extra time as we go through some of these very difficult categories. Well, on the heels of outstanding hair, we have outstanding facial hair, Mike. Another great category that Batty listeners are used to. Well, this time, what a group we have here. We've got Leonard Maltin from the Siskel and Ebert episode, in which we also talked about movie criticism on television in general. Bill Macy from Maude. Sammy Davis Jr. from Bob Hope. Victor French, Mr. Edwards from Little House on the Prairie, and Gene Shalit, another movie critic from the Siskel and Ebert episode. What do you think about these ones, Mike?
This is tough. We've got 2 beards and 3 mustaches.
Yes. a really balanced category.
Yes. Yeah, a beard counts as 1.5. Mm-hmm. So I would personally, Sammy's mustache is part of his look, and I don't want to necessarily go say it's about quantity, but to me, his mustache and Bill Macy's mustache are a little wanting compared to some of this other facial hair.
I can agree with that. I think you're right.
Leonard Maltin has the very well-trimmed beard, salt and pepper beard. I guess it was salt and pepper back then even. It suits his face.
Yes, it does.
I find it hard imagining him without a beard. He's pretty much had a consistent look as long as I've known about him.
Yes, and it's kind of like the accessible academic type beard.
Yeah.
Which suited his style of film criticism well, I think.
Victor French, on the other hand, has the crazy frontier beard.
A little bit more rugged, yeah.
And then Gene Shalit, inspired a disguise with his mustache.
That's right, yes. Ooh.
He could have been in best hair, too.
He could have, yeah.
So it's a little tough for me.
Understandable. I think we could probably agree that Gene Shalit's facial hair was the most influential of these.
Yes.
Now, if we're talking about actual performance, on television at the time, that might be a different story. And to be fair, Gene Shalit, was not a huge part of the Siskel and Ebert show, but he was a huge part of television of the 70s and 80s, so that must be considered. I mean, you could say the same thing for Maltin. Victor French, he had a big part as Mr. Edwards in our Little House on the Prairie episode, so that keeps him in contention. I would probably eliminate Leonard Maltin, though, from the 3 we have left.
Yeah, I think so. I like his beard. It's maybe nothing special.
Right. I would give, it's good, but it's nothing special, so I would give Leonard Maltin's facial hair a 6.
What did the box office say?
Movie-going audiences were much more enthusiastic about Leonard's beard, giving it a B+. It's really 2 distinct choices here.
Yes.
Victor French, Gene Shalit. Boy, I mean, the fact that Gene Shalit had a disguise patterned after him, I mean, that to me is really impressive.
It
Yeah. I'm just saying.
The other day I was walking down the street and I saw a guy in profile who had that kind of look.
Yeah?
And I said to myself, oh, he's got a Gene Shalit disguise.
He could have been anybody, really.
He could have been, yeah.
For all you know, he could have been one of your neighbors.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think this comes down to maybe, there was influence, but maybe we do have to consider how much screen time.
I do think, part of the thing that works against Victor French a little bit that we have to kind of remind ourselves is a lot of his beard, his beard did a lot of its best work off camera in terms of protecting his kids, during the blizzard when they built, the igloo and stuff. I mean, yeah, he was giving them booze, but presumably his beard was also generating some degree of warmth inside that little makeshift igloo too. So
right, yeah.
We didn't actually see it, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. And of course, we saw the effects of what his beard did. So he should get credit for that, even if we didn't directly see it. Yeah, I think you make a good point. I mean, if we were doing like the Today Show and Gene Shalit had maybe a full movie review segment and then a good-natured interview with a filmmaker or other celebrity, it would be a lot easier for me to vote for him. But this one, I'm glad he was nominated. But did he do enough to take home a Batty?
No, I'm going to say it.
Well, okay. That's a good answer. A good answer. A fair answer to a good question. So we're going with Victor French, huh?
We're going with Victor French.
Okay, that's good. I think I feel good about that one.
Mr. Edwards.
Well earned. Well earned. And something to be said, too, for providing the compliment to Michael Lannon's hair. This may be the first time we've ever had the same show win outstanding hair and outstanding facial hair. We'll have to look that up. But that's quite an achievement for Little House on the Prairie. So good for that show.
Yes. Okay. Moving along here to outstanding explanation. This is a new category we haven't had before. We've had outstanding exasperation.
Yes, that's right.
But not outstanding explanation. So we have Lady Elaine and Queen Sarah explaining what love is to Lady Aberlin on Mr. Rogers. Texaco explaining it doesn't really make much money off gas and oil from the Bob Hope specials. Stanley Roderick's explanation of toupees on the witness stand from Perry Mason. Siskel explaining what Ebert thought about Batman, Siskel and Ebert. And Sonny the Rabbit explaining how to eat an Easter egg on the Easter Bunnies Coming to Town. Not to be confused with Sonny the Woman on Bosom Buddies. Wow, what an interesting category.
It is, and first of all, I want to give credit to the Blue Ribboners, because they may have made some questionable nominee listings earlier, but I'll give them credit for looking up Stanley Roderick's, the character name of that witness from Perry Mason.
Yeah.
I'm impressed by that, actually, so I just want to acknowledge that.
Oh, okay.
This is interesting because there's some leeway here. I feel we're left with some leeway. Even if we don't necessarily agree with the premise, we can admire the way the explanation was given, or how it was delivered, things like that. And boy, to me, there's a lot of memorable ones in here, Mike. That explaining how to eat an Easter egg, I mean, that was totally new to me.
Yes.
But it kind of left an impression on me,
It did. It left the impression on me that I'm never going to be able to achieve that.
Yeah, it was a little discouraging in that regard. The toupees, boy, that guy was really into toupees.
He was.
He did a great job in the courtroom for what he was doing as an expert witness, but I don't think I can vote that in this category. I would probably eliminate that, although I admired his enthusiasm.
Yes, I certainly, I think we both learned a lot about toupees that we didn't realize.
We certainly did, and we've had best toupee as a category before.
Right, yeah.
So if we do that again, we might want to call him back to kind of help us as,
Right, make sure we're actually talking about toupees.
That's right. He could have cleared up some questions we've had on the air about certain people in recent years, couldn't he?
Yeah, and once again, we go to our toupee expert.
Yes. The Texaco thing, I'm thinking of particularly like one or two like spots, but that was kind of a recurrent theme throughout the whole. The whole theme was really like it was pro Texaco. They were the sponsor of the Bob Hope and Tahoe special, but they did an amusing job of like just kind of minimizing the amount of money they actually make and showing how much of that money goes to your local gas station operators.
Yes, you're locally owned and operated.
Yes. So that was an amusing explanation.
It was. And the other aspect that they don't own Texaco. Regular people own Texaco.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. I wasn't buying it.
No.
They tried really hard to put a lot of money into it, but so in the sense that I wasn't buying it,
yeah,
I would eliminate that.
That's fair enough.
And did we eliminate the Easter egg one, or is that still up for?
I think we can eliminate the Easter egg one. It's probably happy just to be nominated, but it really left its effect on me. But like you said, I'm still not going to do it that way. So, and it was a little bizarre, frankly.
So that leaves us with Siskel explaining what Ebert thought about Batman, and Lady Elaine and Queen Sarah explaining love to Lady Aberlin. I wonder if Lady Aberlin, if she watched Siskel and Ebert, would she have a similar reaction? Would it confuse her? Because she got confused because Queen Sarah and King Friday were fighting.
That's an excellent point. Yes.
And between Lady Elaine and Queen Sarah, they kind of explain, well, people fight, but that doesn't mean they don't love each other.
Yeah, I don't know how she would react to the Siskel and Ebert situation, which got pretty intense. I do think that it's very difficult to explain a concept like love, given the confines of even public broadcast television, but they did a pretty good job. And they diffused some tensions and put Lady Aberlin's mind at ease a little bit.
Do you think they would have succeeded in explaining it to the character from The Foreigner song?
That is another excellent question, Mike. I'm not sure about that. And that character from that song is still looking for an answer some 35 years later, isn't it?
Yeah, even if, his voice changes sometimes.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know. He might have been looking for a different kind of love.
That's possible, yes. Well, we can always use some love, and any explanation of what love is always welcome around these parts and these times. But I'm thinking of Siskel and Ebert, and I want to laugh just thinking about that scene. When I first saw that, I think I watched it like several times because I was so amused by Ebert's, just how indignant he was at Siskel, because Siskel was basically telling him, what he thought that Ebert really thought about Batman. And then Ebert had the sarcastic response of like, well, if you know so much what I think about it, why don't you just host the show yourself?
Yeah.
I mean, that was like a genuine moment.
Yes.
It was real, and it kind of really perfectly encapsulates the show and their relationship. And, and Siskel just kind of, he had to have known that he probably, came off, like a little bit of a jerk, but it was a very funny moment. To me, that's my favorite explanation of the ones in this group. That's kind of where I lean.
Yeah, it made me laugh reading it. So I agree. And I think possibly I'd have to hear Siskel's explanation again, but I might actually agree with what he was saying.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing is Ebert was very negative on Batman compared to Siskel, and, a lot of people might disagree with that take. So Siskel, I think, was maybe in his way, he was trying to, well, I don't know. I don't know what he was trying to do. Who knows? I shouldn't try to explain what Siskel thought about what he said about Ebert or something like that. But
Ebert did seem a little in the weeds, as I remember, about some stuff.
Yeah.
Like not making sense.
Right. And he was very like unimpressed with the characters, and he sort of liked the look of it, I think, but just was not into the movie. He just wasn't like, it just didn't connect with him. And people may have their theories why, and Gene certainly did, and he wasn't afraid to share it. I think that's my favorite explanation. It's the one that really stands out to me.
Okay.
Well, that takes us to a returning category, Mike.
Yes.
A special category, and I want to give spouse of the show, Lori, a special nod for this, for, I think, bringing it to the Blue Ribbon Commission's attention. It would have been easy to overlook it because we did not have Biggest Dope for our Season 9 baddies, but we have had it off and on. That's one good thing, I think, about the baddies, though, Mike, is we don't throw things in just to have them in there.
That's right.
But I think, now that I'm looking at this particular list of Biggest Dope nominees, I think we can all agree that these are true dopes that are worthy of their place in this category.
Yes. We should remind people, at least one season, cocaine was in this category.
That's right.
Didn't win.
All right. Well, the nominees for Biggest Dope are Willie Olson from Little House on the Prairie, Mr. Plaza, I believe the character played by Dwayne Hickman from High School USA, Mel Tartar, the character played by Dick Gautier in Kolchak the Night Stalker, Hamilton Berger from Perry Mason, and Arthur Harmon from Maude.
Well, I mean, this is a competitive category. More competitive than maybe I thought on initial glance. But let's see who we got. Yeah, I mean, Mr. Plaza is kind of he's a bit of a dope. He gets so obsessed with winning that money that he's, willing to ruin a good relationship.
Mm-hmm. With Angela Cartwright, yes.
Dopey. Mel Tartar. Yeah, he's an amiable dope.
That's right.
And unfortunately, his dopiness does lead to his death.
Yeah.
Hamilton Berger, he was kind of dopey in that one, wasn't he?
He was.
I've seen so many in it lately. I get confused. But
I mean, he had the typical, kind of self-satisfied air about him. It's almost like he deserves kind of a Lifetime Achievement Award for dopiness. But I don't know, in this episode, he didn't necessarily stand out as particularly dopey.
And we're only seeing him up against Mason.
That's right.
Presumably, he's actually pretty competent. Or whoever either hired him or elected him is dopes.
Yeah.
Possibly the entire city of L.A.
It could be. It does almost feel like piling on to single him out for dopiness when he's getting soundly pummeled by Perry Mason every week.
Well, much like losing to Perry Mason means winning a case, finding out the real killer.
Right.
Still getting a prosecution, still good for the stats. Losing at Biggest Dope might mean you're not dopey enough. So I think he would take it as a win.
I think you're right. And maybe that's his strategy all along, is to expend the resources in the preliminary hearings in order to save money and time in the long run by having speedier trial.
Right, and let Perry foot the bill for the investigation.
Which would actually be a brilliant strategy.
Right.
And notably selfless in the sense that he's willing to look bad in front of Mason so that he can get a conviction later. Wow. Hamilton Berger's like a real hero.
Yeah.
He's brilliant.
Yeah. So I can think if we can take him out.
Okay, yeah.
Arthur? Oh, yeah. He's certainly a dope. Now, I wouldn't want to be accused of any bias.
Well, the show clearly was portraying him as a dope. He was protesting objectionable material in the musical that they were putting on, but he was exposed as a hypocrite because when his material was allowed to be in the show, when he was allowed to do a number, he changed his tune. So that's pretty dopey.
Yes.
Maybe not the biggest dopey, but worthy of dopiness. Now, Mel and Kolchak, like you said, he's kind of amiable. He was ultimately kind of harmless, I guess, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And I believe when they needed something from him, he was willing to help. He was very self-absorbed at first, and you know what?
He helped them find the guy to bless the silver.
Yes, and he was actually pretty nice. I mean, he was clueless, but he was inviting Carl into whatever he had going on, and he pretty friendly. I don't really want to vote him biggest dope. I kind of have some respect for him.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about the elephant in the room, not the bosom buddies elephant in the room.
Yeah, that's
the paste eating elephant in the room.
Yeah.
He's really making it difficult to vote for any of these other dopes.
He is, and the thing that gets me about that, Mike, is it's clearly not the first time he's been caught doing that in the classroom.
Right.
It's a habit with him. Mm-hmm. I feel for him in a way, but boy, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what paste was made of back then. Might have been all natural substances.
Some kind of innards, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Lard.
Yeah.
Yeah, which maybe it's not a big deal that he was eating it.
Well, Miss Beadle sure thought it was a big deal.
Yes.
To be fair, I mean, you can eat paste in the frontier, but not in the classroom. That's just not an appropriate setting for it. That should be up to the parents, really. If kids want to eat paste, they should do it on their own time, because you need the paste for academic purposes in the classroom.
Yeah.
So it's not really just self-harmful, but it's wasteful.
Yeah, and they might have needed it later. I don't know, to seal up some frostbite wounds.
That's right. Yeah, or just to put a good seal on the door, with the wind coming in.
Oh, that would have been a great plot twist.
Yeah.
We can't seal up the door because we're out of paste.
And then the camera pans over to Willie, belches or something like that.
Yeah, has more of it on his face.
Sheepish look in his face. I will say, though, that Mr. Plaza, he was the one character. As soon as that happened to Willie, I was like, oh, God, But Mr. Plaza was the one that, continuously, you're kind of watching thinking, oh, man, what a dope. I don't know if I literally said that, but it's like, what's wrong with this guy? I mean, you were really, exasperated by his dopiness.
Yes.
But, he was staying away from the paste, at least. Right. And there was probably a lot of leftover paste, especially in that janitor's closet where David Nelson was. Mm-hmm. So I'll give him that. He was staying away from the paste, whereas Willie just can't keep his hands out of it. That's pretty dopey.
Willie did have that one redeeming moment where he comforted the teacher.
He did.
But if you say, if you look at her choices and think it was a dumb choice, mm-hmm. then he's just being a dope by reinforcing.
Right.
By letting her get over it.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
Probably it wasn't that comforting to her either. She's like, the paste eater? That's the one.
He's the one coming over to be nice. He's probably, high on paste. Not clear of judgment under normal circumstances. Well, I think it's pretty clear who the biggest dope is. Willie Olson.
Yeah.
Yep. Well deserved.
Okay, so the next category is Outstanding Heel. And I'll read the nominees, and then maybe you can explain the difference between this category and the one that follows it.
I will do that.
Standing Heel: Anne-Marie Conklin, High School USA; Bo Middleton, High School USA; Captain Wells, Kolchak; Miss Beale, Little House on the Prairie; and Mr. Fontaine, Macmillan and Wife.
Yes, Mr. Fontaine, I believe, is the Edmund O'Brien character, who I don't think was given a first name. Anne-Marie Conklin, the Crystal Bernard character. Well, okay, so heel, and then to spoil it, the next category is going to be Outstanding Villain. Outstanding Villain is usually somebody that's pure evil, somebody actively doing bad things. Whereas the heel usually often could be somebody that's a little bit more bumbling, somebody that maybe could even sort of mean well sometimes, or maybe somebody that's capable of redemption, but is still doing things that we can't agree with. More of a foil as opposed to an arch enemy or something like that. And I think it'll become a little clearer when we see some of the choices for Outstanding Villain. But, some of these nominees do heelish things, like Captain Wells on Kolchak. He was the captain of the cruise ship that they were on. He was just kind of more being a little bit of a jerk to Kolchak and not really taking some of his claims seriously. And so it looks kind of heelish, are you really doing what you're doing for the right reasons and not just because you're annoyed at Kolchak that maybe you're making some bad decisions, things like that. Now, Mr. Fontaine was a straight up jerk, but as we talked about in that Macmillan and Wife episode, there may have been extenuating circumstances there that explain his behavior. I think you hit on a brilliant theory.
Rubber cement poisoning.
Yes. Gradual rubber cement poisoning. Now, Miss Beadle, we've talked about this Blizzard episode a lot, but the thing is, she was the one that made the decision to send the kids out into the... it was actually good weather at the time, maybe a few snowflakes. So she certainly was very hard on herself, and maybe we're continuing it by putting her in this category, but it's worthy. Now, High School USA. These were characters who were plotting, scheming, and actively doing things against our heroes, Michael J. Fox, Nancy McKeon, and the lovable gang of misfits that they had with them. Crystal Bernard was pretty memorable in this role, but I gotta say, for some reason, just seeing the name Bo Middleton kind of makes me laugh. And that kind of gives him a little bit of an advantage in my early thinking in this category.
He's borderline villain.
Yeah, that's it's possible. You could make that argument for sure. But I mean, really though, he's a high school kid, which makes it maybe harder to put him in. He certainly was a villain to the guys, and he wasn't even very nice to his girlfriend. He wasn't very nice to his cronies.
He did end up mooning the entire school, not on purpose.
He did, and that I think that's one of the things that you can usually find. Like a heel often will get his or her comeuppance, often in a comic way. So that kind of takes a little bit of the edge off their villainy.
Whereas a villain might like fall off a mountain or something.
Yes, exactly. The villain gets like outright defeated or killed, maybe, yes, or some kind of tragic thing. Whereas Bo Middleton might have wished he were dead, but for a minute. But you know what? In a way, Bo Middleton probably he didn't like the idea of being embarrassed, but he was probably like, yeah, you know what? It's not that big a deal. People probably wanted to see this for years, and maybe he'd find a way to turn it to his advantage.
You know what else I think? I bet somewhere in the back of his mind, he's like, I'm going to be at college soon. I can just be in charge again.
Yeah.
Let's find the right college. I'm back on top, baby.
That's right.
Get my dad to buy the library. Something like that.
I agree. I would eliminate the captain, Mike. Just wasn't really strong enough heel. And Mr. Fontaine was, boy, he really had go away heat, as we talked about. He was a very annoying character, but I just don't want to give him the satisfaction of being the outstanding heel.
I think it's down to the two high school people.
I agree.
Miss Beadle might have made a mistake, but I don't consider her a heel.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And the one thing that Anne-Marie did was she sort of toyed with some emotions, did some underhand things. But Bo was really he was the top bad guy, and Anne-Marie aspired to be with Bo, which to me puts him a little bit above her in the pecking order.
Yeah, I feel like if I ever watch Anthony Edwards in something again, somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm going to be disliking him because thinking he's Bo Middle.
Yeah, that just goes to show what a memorable character that was.
Yeah.
One of the biggest scoundrels of the 80s TV movies. My vote would be for Bo Middleton, I think.
Yeah.
And again, credit to Anthony Edwards for inhabiting that role so well, despite, being so likable and so much other stuff. Boy, he was really unlikable as this heel character in High School USA.
Yeah, but yet he wins again.
Yes. We played right into his hands. And we're not even doing a clever long game thing like Hamilton Burgers,
No.
are we? We're straight up, folks. Well, that brings us to Outstanding Villain. Okay, well, we already kind of explained this, that it's a little bit up a notch, maybe. So we've got the Countess from the Easter Bunnies coming to town again. Siberiad from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, the X-Men adventure. The Werewolf from Kolchak, the Night Stalker. Monica Fontaine, who was Enright's ex-wife from Macmillan and Wife. And Colmar from Perry Mason, the episode we did, of course, The Case of the Treacherous Toupee. Now, Mike, as I'm looking at this, some people in this committed actual felonies, and some people didn't. Mm-hmm. Some people may have attempted to do some things, so interesting here. What do you think about these?
Well, I'll take the werewolf out. One, how in control of things was he? I mean, he's a werewolf. It's just, once you turn into a werewolf, you're going to throw people around. That's what you do. He's just following his nature. Now, you could argue that in his human form, in attempting to not, to hide it and not tell anyone, he was causing trouble. Or just in getting on a boat with people.
Yeah.
Why did he get on that boat?
I don't know. That seems to be one of the worst places in the world for somebody even that. To me, like, the human aspect of him would make him more of a heelish kind of behavior.
Yes.
But the werewolf is more villainy. But you're right. Given the circumstance, it's more tragic, and kind of takes him out of, like, top villainy to me.
Yeah, I don't feel like there was malice. He's just out of control.
Right.
And Colmar is a murderer, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, that guy kind of had it coming to him.
Wow.
I mean, the whole episode was built around that.
You do a podcast with somebody for 10 seasons, and you don't really know them until we get to the baddies.
No, I don't condone murder of any kind. But I'm really having trouble remembering even what.
The details of that particular murder?
Yes. He was the accountant, right?
Yes. Very shady. Well, he was very shady, but he certainly wasn't like it's one of those things because of the nature of the show. You don't necessarily see the villainy revealed until you find out that they committed a crime. And then you sort of fill in the blanks, like, oh, they did this horrible thing, but you don't really see the villainy in action, which kind of hurts Colmar in this case, I would agree.
Yeah, Siberiad was trying to kill the X-Men and Spider-Man. I don't condone that.
No, I don't either.
No, he was a sort of, again, another sort of tragic situation there. But
yeah, I wasn't quite sure how much of, like, Firestar's original boyfriend was left, and how much in control was. To me,
exactly 50%.
Yeah, that's true. I suppose that's true. To me, it was a little different than the werewolf situation.
Yes.
Siberia, the cyborg part was.
Yes, the AI had taken over, and was bent on revenge. I'm not clear what it would have done afterwards. Like, would it have gone on some sort of continued to like an Ultron sort of thing, like try to take over the world, or
Right.
it just would have been like, well, okay, I completed my programming.
Yeah. Mission accomplished.
Yep.
Powering down.
Yeah, we can leave him for now. I think the Countess in Easter. Yeah, boy, she was no good. Manipulating a child.
Right. And suppressing all fun, anything, hinting at fun in the town.
But you know who seems like a real villain to me? Monica Fontaine. I mean, I'm sympathetic that she was ill and wanted to die on her own terms. But her own terms included framing her ex-husband, who she blamed for everything bad that happened in her life.
Yes.
Her ex-husband, who's a very decent man.
That's true. And what a diabolical way she did it, just so calculated, and it really was kind of evil, Oof.
And think about it. If she had succeeded, he would have gone to prison. Mac would no longer have a liaison and would have to get a guy who played somebody's husband on Designing Women. Oh, wait. And... But San Francisco would have been deprived of Policeman of the Year.
That's right. That's absolutely right. You make an excellent point there. For me, Countess is sort of like, I would identify more strongly with that if I were still in our coveted 2 to 11-year-old demographic. That Countess would have been, I would have really identified with King Bruce and his struggle with Countess. Now that I'm a little bit more seasoned, she doesn't have quite the same impact. Siberiad to me was also overshadowed by the X-Men and the Heroes. It wasn't quite a strong enough villain, despite the effort to craft a nice little bittersweet story around Firestar. Not quite in the level I'd like to see for my outstanding villain, whereas I kind of agree with you that Monica Fontaine was maybe the most memorable character in this category of these nominees.
I think so. Diabolical. So we're giving it to her?
I think we are, yeah.
One good thing in her life. She
Yes.
won a baddie. Posthumously, sure, but she still won one.
And she is a baddie. Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right. So we're moving on to Outstanding Non-Human.
Whoa.
I think that explains itself.
I think so.
Could be anything that's not human, as we like to remind people. That includes, again, cocaine.
Yeah.
And a board.
Yeah, that is
So
previous.
you don't know what's going to happen here. So we have Sunny, the Easter Bunny. Gadzooks, the bear from the Easter Bunnies coming to town. The robot from High School USA. X the Owl from Mr. Rogers. Trolley from Mr. Rogers. And Jeff Goldblum's meat freezer from It's Gary Shandling's show.
Oh gosh! Wow. Well, I guess it's a privilege to talk about these first, but it's also difficult, Mike, because there's so much talent in this category. I think I talked in Mr. Rogers how much I loved X the Owl, and I can't really explain it, but I do like it. But unfortunately, had a very minor role in the episode we talked about.
He did. I mean, he did read some Ben Franklin.
He did read Ben Franklin. He tried to be helpful. I got to eliminate him, I think. I think we should eliminate him. Just not quite up to it here. Similarly, I think Sonny and Gadzooks kind of split each other. Gadzooks, I think we talked about, that was our season opener, actually, our Easter special. Gadzooks, they could have done a lot more with his character. It seemed like after they sort of turned him and made him like a likable character, and they kind of abandoned him a little bit. And I think that hurts him. So I would probably rule him out. And Sonny was likable, but there's just something about him as a main character. I just can't quite embrace Sonny. Maybe it's the name. I never got past the name of Sonny the Rabbit. But I would recommend eliminating X and both the characters from the Easter special.
Okay. Just, a quick shout out to Gadzooks in his finery, his suit.
Yes.
Dandy Gadzooks was really cool looking.
I don't believe we have a fashion-centric category this year,
No.
but if we did, Gadzooks, that might have been his chance to shine. That still leaves us with 3 outstanding candidates, Mike. Trolley, a stalwart of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. The Meat Freezer, wow, what a great set that was. And the robot from High School USA, who was pretty cool. Again, as I think about it now, the robot could have done even more, I think. It was key, and I did like, I can't remember if I talked about this on the podcast, Mike, but one thing that I was really impressed by with the robot was the robot's reaction shots. There was good acting by reacting when they were kind of explaining the plan near the end, and the robot was just, you really believed that the robot was actually listening to what they're saying rather than just waiting for his cue, and jumping in. So I give him credit for that, and it's for that reason that I can't just eliminate him, but I really think it's between these 3, and it's tough at this point. What do you think, Mike?
He did pull down Anthony Edwards' pants.
Yeah.
For good or ill. Yeah, I see your point there. Trolley's a trolley. Trolley did what Trolley does. Ding. He took us to the land of neighborhood of make-believe, brought us back. Solid work. That meat freezer, boy, like you said, great set, and played his part.
Created a real sense of comic peril.
Yes. set up perfectly for that.
Sure did. And, the thing about Trolley is it's always a seamless transition between the two drastically different parts of the show. And Trolley is that bridge between the two worlds and always does that very well.
One might say he transports you.
Indeed, indeed. Well, as much as I like the robot, I think I'm a little sentimental about that, Mike. I think sometimes I'm projecting of what I wish the robot had done. I like the robot. I don't mean to diss it, but
it's a good robot.
Yeah, I think I could probably eliminate that at this point.
Yeah, and I know you were disappointed that his name was just Robot.
I was, yes. Now, I should point out that I happen to be wearing right now a T-shirt available from our official TeePublic store, mind you, of Rewind Stubbs, our official Battle Network show's mascot, who happens to be of robotic descent. So nothing against robots.
No.
But this particular robot, I don't think I'm going to vote for.
I agree. I can't fault Trolley in any way, but boy, I want to vote for Jeff Goldblum's meat freezer.
Well, Trolley did the same thing, with brilliance, mind you. But again, the consistent exactly what you expect. Whereas the meat freezer, it kind of surprised us in a few ways, and it stood out in a guest role, and
yet did exactly what we expected.
That's true. That's true. Yes, it certainly did.
Yeah, I'm leaning meat freezer.
I think so too. I think we should go with that.
Okay.
I think we're both pleased with the Blue Ribboners' work on that one.
Yeah.
But way to go, Meat Freezer, and way to go, Jeff Goldblum too, for having it.
Right.
And supporting it and installing it without a good safety lock system.
Yes.
Oh boy. All right. Well, I guess we're at the point of the show where it's time to introduce the listener awards. And these are ones that were determined entirely by you, the listeners. And these are unique ones that we've never given out before. So for now, just for this season. First up, we have the Best Friends Award. And this baddie is for the outstanding besties who displayed their friendship in an episode that we discussed on the podcast this season. And I'll just read the nominees and then we can reveal the winner. The nominees were Kip and Henry from Bosom Buddies, Spider-Man, Firestar, and Iceman from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, Charles Ingalls and Isaiah Edwards from Little House on the Prairie, Mac and Enright from Macmillan and Wife, and Gary Shandling and Jeff Goldblum from It's Gary Shandling Show. And I'm pleased to announce, Mike, that the clear winners in this category were Kip and Henry, the Bosom Buddies.
Congratulations.
So yeah, I'm glad to see Bosom Buddies get an award because I think that episode got good response. We haven't really seen that show represented a lot so far in the baddies, but it's good that they took something home. I think people enjoyed revisiting that show.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that. I mean, there's all good nominees here, but it's in the title of the show.
Yeah.
They're bosom buddies.
And a good tribute to the on-screen chemistry between Tom Hanks and Peter Scolari and how that was really a true team effort, that series.
Yeah, all right. So the second award is the Missing in Action Award. This baddie is for the regular character in a series who was not featured in an episode we covered and whose presence was missed the most. The nominees are Aunt May from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, Jonathan Garvey from Little House on the Prairie, Mr. McFeely from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Mrs. Naugatuck from Maude, and Emmanuel Lewis from the Bob Hope Specials. Yeah, and the winner, again, I think it was a pretty clear winner, right? Mr. McFeely from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Oh, congratulations.
Which is, an excellent choice. I mean, these are all good nominees, but excellent choice because that drove some of the story of the episode that Fred was filling in for him.
That's right, his absence, and he had to go to the costume shop with Elise Neal.
And had to make some phone calls.
One thing I'll say, Mike, is I don't think we could give this award out every season because just kind of a little podcast note, I think as the years have gone by and we've done this more, I think you and I think we're more cognizant than maybe we ever were before of like, okay, we should do an episode with so-and-so or trying to do episodes that are representative of the series. So I think it's a little bit more rare than it used to be that we might leave a big character out. But we did have some situations just because some shows were on the air so long that we had to leave out some people, and Aunt May just didn't make it into that Spider-Man episode.
Yeah, and I mean, in the case of some of these, they weren't on the show yet.
Right.
Because of the episode we chose.
And Emmanuel Lewis might not even been born yet. Well, maybe it was clear. I guess he probably was.
He probably.
And I'm sure he was adorable.
Okay, we're going to take a little break here from the action and honor some of the fallen members of the BOTNS community, so to speak, for the past year. And then we'll be back with, as we like to say, the big category. Not the best categories, but the big categories.
The big ones coming up. In Memoriam, Season 10. Clu Gulager, Roger E. Mosley, Olivia Newton-John, Nichelle Nichols, Burt Metcalf, Tony Dow, Torian Black, Pat John, Larry Storch, David Burney, Philip Baker Hall, Charles Siebert, Bo Hopkins, Robert Morse, Liz Sheridan, Gilbert Gottfried, Barry Youngfellow, Nehemiah Persoff, Scoey Mitchell, Emilio Delgado, Conrad Janis, Johnny Brown, Howard Hessman, Ralph Emery, Bob Saget, Dwayne Hickman, Marilyn Bregman, John Madden, Betty White, Bernard Shaw.
Welcome back to the rest of the Baddies, Season 10 Baddies. We've already had a lot of great winners here. A lot of competition, a lot of great winners. And now it's time to get into those big categories.
Oh, we got a lot for you. So stick around. It's only going to get better, and things are going pretty well here in the Spectrum. I'm enjoying the atmosphere quite a bit, seeing an appreciation of competition and excellence, and let's hope that continues.
Yeah, I just finished a giant pretzel.
Yeah, how was it?
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I think we're about ready for the musical portion of the Baddies, and by that we don't mean that we're going to start singing. At least, I don't plan to.
Although there was after the In Memoriam, maybe this wasn't entirely appropriate scheduling-wise, but a medley of theme songs done in a Philly soul style.
Yeah. I guess for now that'll have to remain a in-person exclusive,
Yeah.
music rights and all that. But trust us, it was excellent.
If you're paying to be there, you do need a little extra.
Well, so should we get back into the awards?
Yeah.
We're looking at the outstanding theme song with lyrics. Unlike some awards, we distinguish between theme songs that are lyrics-based and the theme songs that are mostly instrumental. In the category of theme songs with lyrics, we have The Easter Bunny is Coming to Town, It's Gary Shandling Show, the theme to It's Gary Shandling Show, the theme from High School USA, Bosom Buddies, and Maude. So these were the shows we covered that had theme songs with lyrics.
So, first of all, there's a question about Bosom Buddies, like which theme song we're talking about.
Yes, many people, when it was first on, it used the cover of Billy Joel's My Life. Most of its history and syndication and video, it's used a different song by Stephanie Mills that I believe was written by the show's creator,
Yes.
Chris Thompson. Well, I don't know. We didn't hear the Billy Joel song in our show watching.
Right. And the fact that it's a pre-existing song, I think would eliminate it anyway.
Good point. I think we should go with the Stephanie Mills.
Which didn't suit the editing of the opening, but thematically actually suits the
Right. It was like Shake Me Loose, or You Can Try to Shake Me Loose, or something like that. Yeah.
Easter Bunny is Coming to Town is Easter Bunny is Coming to Town, of course. And High School USA, I think we should just, I wasn't a fan.
I wasn't a fan. The reason I sort of liked it because it was so out of place. But yeah, it's not winning this one.
Weird music in that whole thing, and a missed opportunity with that song to just say High School USA a lot.
Yeah.
It's Gary Shandling Show. It's the theme to Gary Shandling Show.
The opening theme to Gary Shandling Show.
And Maude, of course, is a classic. And then there's Maude.
There certainly is.
So we've eliminated High School USA. I think we can. I know you find the Easter Bunny one memorable. I can't quite remember it, if I'm being totally honest.
Well, and that's telling. It's the one that Fred Astaire kind of sings it in his own casual kind of sing-songy way. I really liked it, but if you can't remember it, and it's more of a special, so it's the theme song of a special, I'm willing to eliminate that from consideration. I think that's fair.
So that leaves us Bosom Buddies, Maude, and Gary Shandling.
Yeah, I don't think the Bosom Buddies song really belongs with those two. It's more famous for replacing another song, whereas the other two are famous in their own right.
Yeah.
These are often the most painful categories for us,
They
the
are.
theme song ones, aren't they?
Yeah. And this is, I love It's Gary Shandling Show, that song. It's the perfect song for that show. But I also, the Maude song is kind of perfect for that show. Its way. And I think if I just wanted to hear a song, I would pick that before.
Boy, you're right on that. It's Donny Hathaway, I believe. It's delivered well. Some lyrics of questionable taste. Joan of Arc,
Yes.
burned at the stake, and making light of that questionable taste. But boy, it's catchy. It's almost better than the show deserves, and like. It's almost too appropriate for the show in some ways. I think you really hit the essential conundrum for me. I agree. It's Gary Shandling's show was just hilarious, and you sit and listen to it, and it sets up the show, and it helps that there's always something different going on while the song's playing, or there's often something going on without dialogue, like in the background on the show itself, and that really helps it to me. That's part of the overall presentation.
And it's commentary on TV theme song.
It is, yes.
Now, I was maybe leaning Maud, but now I'm leaning back towards Gary Shandling. I mean, this is best theme song. It's not best song.
Yes, you did make an excellent point, and I agree with you. Like, if you were just to listen to something on the radio, it would be the Mod song, or if you were to put something up on your Spotify playlist or whatever the kids call it these days, you might well listen to Mod. But yeah, this is a TV theme song, so we're talking about what happens when you're sitting there watching the TV episode. And that kind of tilts me back towards Gary Shandling, like you just said.
You know, it might catch some flack for that, but I feel like it's just a crystallization of TV theme songs.
It is. And in many ways, I think both of these shows, it's one of the most famous things about them is the theme song. But particularly with it's Gary Shandling's show, I think for some reason, you know, that song sticks with people and they love that and it makes them smile, even if they don't necessarily recognize or remember specific episodes. It's a tough call, but I think I would go with Gary Shandling's show on this one.
Yeah, I think so.
Ooh, okay.
You know, Maud can protest if she wants.
Yes, she certainly can.
Maybe she'll have a chance in another category. Another musical category.
Quite possible, quite possible.
So now we have the outstanding theme song instrumental. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, Perry Mason, Kolchak, The Night Stalker, McMillan and Wife, Little House on the Prairie, and Thanks for the Memories from the Bob Hope Special, and the Siskel and Ebert theme song.
Now, let me just say, I think what the committee was thinking, because Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, he does sing, but the music that you hear as you watch the credits is instrumental.
And, I mean, maybe you could say it transitions into the Won't You Be My Neighbor, but, you know, a lot of music on that show transitions from one thing to another. So while you're watching the credits and seeing the model of the neighborhood and all of that.
Yes. All right. Digging in here, I love Thanks for the Memories, but it just doesn't feel like it should be the winner here. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I'm going to eliminate that one. You agree with that?
Yeah.
McMillan and Wife, I have a hard time remembering that. And there's
Wasn't that generic?
Yeah, the NBC mystery movie. That whole thing is kind of nebulous, and you know, nothing against Henry Mancini or whoever, you know, but the NBC mystery. But I just don't think this is the category for McMillan and Wife. So
Plus in that second season, they got rid of the cool credits.
yes. Boy, Siskel and Ebert, it's actually very peppy music. Like the version, they had different ones. The version that around, like, I guess 1989, I think was when our episode was, it was actually kind of cool. It was a little generic, but I enjoyed it. I think they had good music, but not enough to win this category. So that leaves us with Mr. Rogers, Spider-Man, Perry Mason, Kolchak, and Little House on the Prairie. I like the Kolchak music. Well, I don't know.
It's okay.
I'm looking at some of these other ones, and I couldn't vote it over some of these other ones. I would eliminate the Kolchak one. It's more atmosphere. I mean, it was probably cool if you were watching it at the time, but nowadays it doesn't hold up quite as much.
Right, and there's only so much whistling you can take.
Yeah.
You know, Little House is a pretty great theme song that fits the show. And Perry Mason, of course, is a terrific song. And Spider-Man Has Amazing Friends in a totally different way is perfect for that. 80s synthesizer, but exciting. And, of course, Mr. Rogers, that great piano, sets the mood.
It does. Little House, I always found, it's perfect for what it is, but kind of contradicting what we said in the last one. If I isolate it from the show, it doesn't do as much for me. I have a clear favorite of these ones we have left.
Uh-huh.
A clear favorite. Like, one that passes the test of, like, when the show comes on, do you want to, like, start banging your head and putting up devil horns like Beavis and Butthead and, like, getting down to it? And there's one song on this, well...
Mr. Rogers.
Actually, I kind of do that with two of them. But there's one more than the others that I always want to do that just it gets me hyped up. It gets me excited for the show. I just think it's brilliant.
Like, I can't imagine doing that particular activity to the Perry Mason theme, but it certainly gets me hyped up for the show.
Well, that's the one I was thinking of, my friend. Yeah, because, you know, there's just something just so cool about it. Even with the different incarnations of that credit sequence and different visuals, you still get that music. And boy, that music is just so cool. I mean, it's an example of a theme song that actually elevates the material. Like, Perry Mason it's not the grittiest of shows, but that music does give it some kind of, like, edge. It gives the show even more of, like, a hardness that you don't necessarily want in Perry Mason, but, like, it's there. It gives it, like, an undercurrent that I really think helps it. And it just, like you said, it just gets you psyched up for the show.
Oh, this is not going to translate well in the podcast, but here's what happens when I'm listening to it and it gets to the end of the sort of phrase, like every time, my eyebrows go up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a dramatic impact. That's the power of music right there.
I never skipped that intro. You know, but I mean, Mr. Rogers, you wouldn't want that, and you don't get that.
True.
Laid back jazz.
These other themes are definitely doing what they are meant to do.
Yeah.
It's no knock on them.
Now, Spider-Man is one of those ones where the addition of the voiceover is part of the charm, too.
That's right, yeah.
And sound effects.
And I do get pretty wound up when I'm watching that one, too. You know, my favorite is Perry Mason. I think it's one of my favorite theme songs of all time. So that would be, you know, that's the way I lean.
I can't not vote for that. I think any of these I could go for. So
Right.
I'm good with Perry Mason. Now, there was some talk, I believe, among the committee where the Perry Mason would be eligible for anything since it is outside of the era. But
Right.
ultimately, I guess they decided, it was on the show.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately what we're going to do. Last season we looked at the Munsters. It's a little bit different because we tied it into an era appropriate version of the Munsters with the cartoon movie. Now this was kind of our retro shows, you've called it. This was purely of its time, but it's eligible in all the categories, and hey.
It's too bad there wasn't a Perry Mason cartoon movie.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay, I'm fine with that.
Okay, Perry Mason it is then. So it's Gary Shandling's show and Perry Mason for the theme songs. Wow, a couple of classics.
I think part of how it got nominated by the committee too is that Perry himself came in and made a stunning argument. It might have involved revealing that one of the committee had committed murder, but it's good to know that.
Yeah, and I'm sure Paul Drake helped him do some legwork on that too. So, but well done, Perry. But it's earned though. It's earned. Well, that brings us to outstanding song. And nominees here are songs that appeared within the episodes that we talked about. And we've got an interesting assortment here. Many of the potential nominees, I believe, came overwhelmingly from 2 particular shows, but we've got a group of, it looks like five songs here. And they are Which Came First, the Chicken or the Egg by the Hendrews Sisters from The Easter Bunny is Coming to Town Again. Also from that Easter special, All You Have to Do Is Think Can Do by Fred Astaire and the cast. Then we have from the Bob Hope special, the Tahoe Comedy Spectacular that we did, Poor Boy Music by Mac Davis and the Struts, I've Grown Accustomed to His Face by Dean Martin, and Fernando by Charo. And finally from Maude, the episode Maude's Musical, we have Hard-Hearted Hannah, the Vamp of Savannah, performed by B. Arthur, of course in character as Maude. So there we have it. 5 songs. Which is the most outstanding for Batty purposes, Mike?
B. Arthur gave it her all in that performance. Or I should say Maude gave it her all in that performance.
That's right.
So these Bob Hope ones, the Poor Boy Music, that was, Mac Davis and the Struts, and it was a bit of some good country comedy music. A little bit of fun there. I've Grown Accustomed to His Face also.
And had a nice punchline at the end of that number.
Yep, and Fernando was an interesting take on an ABBA song.
She breathed new life into that.
Yes, and then you have the 2 Easter songs, which came first, the chicken or the egg. I believe we questioned maybe some of the confidence with which they offered their opinion.
Yes.
But it was a fun song.
Right.
And all you have to do is think can do. I seem to remember it being very aspirational, very inspirational, very perspirational. Wait, no.
Well, maybe the one thing it wasn't was perspirational. Because old Fred was laid back, as always, in that one.
Fred Astaire, he did everything without sweating. And Ginger Rogers did everything without sweating in heels.
Exactly.
Backwards in heels. Right?
That's right.
So I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I don't really remember. The Maude number doesn't stick out to me as much, even within that show. I mean, I can understand why the committee nominated that one. However, there were some other songs that were a little bit more traditionally recognizable, and there was more going on visually. So I don't really remember that Maude song enough to vote for outstanding song. Of the Easter Bunny songs, I really prefer the Fred Astaire song to the Chicken or the Egg one. The Chicken or the Egg one is funny, but I wouldn't want to listen to it more than once. Whereas the Fred Astaire, all you have to do is think can do. Like after seeing that, I think I was singing that around the house for weeks afterwards.
And did it change your outlook on things?
Not at all. Not at all. It didn't change my outcome in any way, shape, or form. But it did make me annoy everybody else in my household by singing it so much. So it may have changed their outlook on things, but not for the better.
That's points in its favor.
I agree. From the Bob Hope special, there's something about the OTNS favorite Charo that I did like that Fernando version. I mean, it was something different, and it was nice contrast within the show itself. The Dean Martin number, to me, it's more recognizable for the joke at the end than the performance itself. And Mac Davis and the Struts, well, it was nice just to get Mac Davis a nomination.
Yeah.
Well deserved, but I don't think I could vote for that one either.
I guess, there are only so many slots, but he could have been in Best Hair, too.
Mac Davis, yeah. It's one of those things.
And Burt Convy kind of would have split there.
Yeah.
The curly hair.
That's possible. There were so many people in that Bob Hope special that it probably made it harder for people to stand out in certain categories. Except, Sammy Davis Jr. made it to a couple, even though it wasn't necessarily his best work. But there was a lot going on in Tahoe that night.
Well, I can't really disagree with anything you're saying. I mean, I could, but...
You're more than welcome to.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to say against that. I mean, I think I remember the Chicken and Egg song more, but honestly, right now, I don't remember exactly either of them. I just remember the spirit of that more. But
See, this
If
is
you
why...
were able to annoy people with the other one,
Yes.
that's points.
Oh, I was. In many ways, I think this points out the pureness of the baddies, where instead of like poring over like review tapes and screeners for like months, we're making the determinations right here.
Yeah.
You know, this is the first time we're seeing these lists. So
That's right. There was no campaigning.
that's right. So we give some honest responses.
You know, I think, well, both of these are really kind of hurt by being early in the season. All of these were pretty early in the season.
That's a good point. Yeah, Easter was in April.
You know, much like a movie coming out in March might not be remembered for the Oscars.
True.
But those early shows sometimes aren't as memorable for the baddies, but all the nominees came from there.
And if something can break through, that speaks even more highly of it, I think. And again, all you have to do is can do an original for the Easter Bunny special, whereas Fernando, of course, is a cover, like you said, of the ABBA song. So for that reason, I lean towards Fred Astaire.
Yeah, sure.
I feel good about that one.
You made a persuasive argument. And again, just to give Charles some credit, she did something new with that song. And I'm not saying I'm anti-ABBA or trying to be cool or anything. I don't know their music that well.
Right.
But I do know it's hard to deny the craft of the melodies.
Yes.
I think she wasn't doing a lot of guitar stuff. I think she'd been doing more guitar stuff. Maybe pushed a little more.
That's reasonable. Nevertheless, a good showing for her. No shame in being runner-up to Fred Astaire.
And she did stand out, again, like you said, in that
That's
special
right.
full of...
Yeah, now, I'm not going to annoy our listeners, but I pledge that I will, in honor of this baddie win, I will continue to annoy my wife and children by singing that song around the house. And I think Fred would have wanted it that way.
Okay. We're up outstanding supporting female.
We certainly are, yes.
And the nominees are Nancy Walker from Macmillan and Wife, Wendy Jo Sperber from Bosom Buddies, Nita Talbot from Kolchak, Adrienne Barbeau from Maude, Barbara Hale from Perry Mason, and Charlotte Stewart from Little House on the Prairie.
Ooh, boy.
Pretty good category.
We do. And one thing that stands out to me is we have a couple of strong performers who maybe didn't get as much screen time in the episodes we covered as they did in other ones. I'm thinking specifically of Nancy Walker from Macmillan and Wife and Wendy Jo Sperber, who had significant roles, but sometimes they would have whole episodes centered around them. But maybe we can see more how they support, in these episodes. Nita Talbot, BOTNS favorite from the Columbo episode we did several episodes seasons ago. Yeah, oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Could she be a two-time winner? I think that would be unprecedented, actually. Yeah. Adrienne Barbeau, boy, she really worked. One thing I'll say about Adrienne Barbeau, this was in the musical episode, doing some research, just kind of refreshing my mind about some of what we did. If you go, I think, to if you look up the Maude's musical episode, like the screen caps, I think it was on IMDb, they were all posted from like her performance, her belly dance performance, where she was on stage with Bill Macy. So you have to give her credit for that. I'm trying to say that she put a lot of effort into the episode and singing, dancing, whatnot, and being kind of a voice of reason to the other wackiness around her. Della Street, Barbara Hale, hey, you can't go wrong with her. She's solid, rock solid. Charlotte Stewart is Miss Beadle on Little House on the Prairie. Complex episode for her to be the school teacher and also portray the agony that she went through as the kids suffered, and their fates were uncertain. So there's a lot going on in this category. Nita Talbot had a relatively small but very colorful role. And speaking of foil, she was a very nice foil for our intrepid Carl Kolchak. So I'm glad to see her get the nomination. But those are my initial thoughts. There's nobody I really eliminate right away, which I think speaks well to the category, Mike.
Right. This probably doesn't speak well of me that I had to wait for you to say what character Charlotte Stewart played before I knew who she was.
Well, I wouldn't be too hard on yourself. The show was run by Michael Landon's hair, and everybody else was secondary. Yes. So
right. Michael Landon's hair, assisted by Victor French's beard.
Correct.
But I don't want that to take away my ignorance to take away from her. She did some fine work as Miss Beadle there, and Nancy Walker killed it in her 2 or 3 scenes.
She really did.
Brought a lot of humor to a show that already had a lot of humor about her, especially her sort of just nonchalance about Enright's supposed guilt.
And Laurie really liked her too, I think. That's something I think I noticed is just Nancy Walker really grabs the screen when she's on, she makes the most of the limited screen time, that's for sure.
Yeah, she's like a bounty paper towel.
Yes,
she soaks up as much of the screen. Wendy Jo Sperber was an essential part of Bosom Buddies.
She
Probably, like, if you had to look at that cast and you started, you had the Bosom Buddies and then you had to get rid of people. To me, she would be the last person you would get rid of besides Buddies.
Yeah, I think she was the best overall actress and her character, the most overall to do. In the particular episode, the Water Balloon Gate episode, she may not have had as much to do, like I said, in other ones. So didn't necessarily stand out in that one, but still a welcome presence.
And I believe in the Mason episode, I praise Barbara Hale for how much that she brings to that character and how much that character actually does. In a role, it might seem like it's not that important.
Right.
I don't know. I guess, who can we... I would probably say start eliminating maybe Charlotte Stewart. I don't know. She did the most out of everyone in a way. Had the most to do.
She really did. I think I would probably eliminate her too, though. And I would probably eliminate Adrienne Barbeau. And I might eliminate Wendy Jo Sperber too. For me, it's between Nancy Walker, Barbara Hale, and Nita Talbot. And these are three, and I can include Wendy Jo Sperber in there, but the Nita Talbot role is distinct from the others because it's a guest spot. It's a one-off. But she did make a very memorable impression. So her movie-loving, kind of cruise passenger sort of took that role, sort of went in interesting ways too. It didn't necessarily turn out the way I expected it to, her character, which I enjoyed. And it was kind of one of those things where oh, she's in this, this is going to be cool, and she delivered. So I give her a lot of credit for that, but in a way it's kind of apples and oranges to, the iconic Della Street and Nancy Walker, who was a huge part of the show, and as we laid out, Wendy Jo Sperber. So it's tough here. Do you reward the memorable guest appearance, or do you reward, excellent work by somebody who's a regular cast member?
Right. I don't have an answer. I'm really not sure where to go.
Well, I'm trying to think of. I do remember talking about Barbara Hill as Della Street. Now, I'm having troubles remembering exactly what she was doing in that episode. Like you said, we watched so many episodes, and Perry Mason ones more than any other show blends together for me.
Well, she was involved in hiring the double, and at the end, she followed the murderer to the airport.
That's right, with Trag.
With Trag and yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, she delivered the line that I'm paraphrasing, but when are you going to tell me what's going on?
Yeah. I really respect the work that she does, and I won't deny that she's an essential part of the show, but, to me, she just doesn't stand out as much as a couple of the other ones. But, I can be persuaded. It's a tough call. I think my personal favorite, just as a gut thing, I think my personal favorite, if I'm going for gut, is the Nita Talbot role on Kolchak. But,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm a big fan of hers. I keep seeing her in things after the Columbo.
Yeah, I think it's a big advantage too in my mind, Mike, because like I said, I remember that episode, so it stands out a little bit more than Nancy Walker singing, Sony McMillan and Wife and Barbara Hale and Wendy Jo Sperber in dozens of episodes of their respective shows. So that's kind of a built-in advantage. But that's just my gut.
Yeah, I think like in Columbo, she did a lot with an opportunity.
Yeah.
She didn't just phone it in.
She certainly did not.
Okay.
We're going with Nita Talbot?
I think so, yeah. I mean, the crowd here at the Spectrum's maybe getting a little rowdy, but...
Yeah, it does, there's a lot of commotion.
Yes.
But, that's to be expected once we get to these more difficult choices. But, all right, well, that's who we're going with, Nita Talbot for Kolchak the Night Stalker.
Wow,
well done.
Double winner. Not unprecedented, but not something that happens all the time.
No.
Especially for someone doing guest shots.
Exactly. Okay. And, well, we had Outstanding Supporting Female. Now we have Outstanding Female. So this is for the ladies in the lead roles. Here we go. We've got Susan St. James for McMillan and Wife. Firestar for Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Lady Aberlin for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, of course. B. Arthur from the title role in Maude. Nancy McKeon from High School USA. And Karen Grassley. Pretty sure it's not Grassel. for Little House on the Prairie. Caroline, of course.
Okay. Caroline or Carolyn, depending who's saying it.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think we both agree not Nancy McKeon's finest work.
Correct. She was the lead in that movie, that's true, but we were a little disappointed by it. Mainly because of the characterization, I think. There's so much her fault.
The writing.
Yeah.
Lady Aberlin was very important in that episode. I always find her a little odd.
Interesting.
Especially that episode. She was so out of sorts.
Yeah, very off-kilter. Probably not the best showcase for her in retrospect. I could eliminate her. I loved her on the show as a kid, but I'm fine with eliminating her. Got to make hard decisions.
We do, and I don't think Wife... She wasn't particularly active in that episode.
No, it was actually one where there was enough for everybody else to do that they didn't have to force her in, like we talked about. They did in some other episodes.
I mean, I find her very appealing on that show, but she really just didn't have a lot to do.
Okay. Wow.
I would say I would eliminate her. So weirdly for me, it's between Firestar, B. Arthur, and Ma Ingalls.
For me, I would have probably kept Wife around a little bit more, but I hear you on that, though. For me, I would have a similar, to me, Mother Ingalls just didn't stand out as much in this particular episode. I would probably eliminate her.
Right.
And part of it was it was a Beetle episode, and the women kind of just had to, tend to the frostbitten while the men got to go out and be rescuers. So, but yeah, I would eliminate her. I am in favor of keeping in B. Arthur. Firestar, that was we talk about, what episodes. This was a showcase episode for Firestar.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt about that.
And she had to deal with her past.
Mm-hmm.
And she had to save the day.
Yeah.
She had to learn some lessons.
She did.
And, she's cool. And she had to take crappy advice from Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's true. that's a bit of a burden. Firestar is not a perfect character. Like, in a lot of episodes, she does wind up getting, like, knocked unconscious or something, or doing something kind of dumb and getting incapacitated probably earlier than you would like. But all things considered, she's really one of the best, like, female Saturday morning cartoon characters of that era. So it's good to see her get props in this category, this very prestigious category.
It's also just good to have a cartoon character be up against B. Arthur.
Yeah.
I feel that, not many award shows would do that.
No, they wouldn't. Now, B. Arthur did a lot of, she had to deal with Arthur's buffoonery, and she had to do this while putting on a show and singing. Whether we wanted her or not, B. Arthur was singing in that episode. That might count against her.
Yeah, and she had to do some vaudevillian comedy.
She did, yes.
In the show. And
it's one of those things where, again, and it was clearly a showcase episode for B. Arthur. And Maude did this. They put the characters into these musical episodes on several occasions. It's a tough call. It's really getting hectic here at the Spectrum.
Some kids and
this is, if you would have told me, if you would have asked me what the most controversial category would be, I would not have said it would have been this one, but
no.
It's shaping up to really cause a ruckus around here.
I feel like the kids are clamoring for Firestar, or maybe B. Arthur.
Yeah.
And the adults are clamoring for B. Arthur.
Well, I mean, B. Arthur had sort of a cross-generational appeal, like in the way that Ethel Merman did, in this era. Very appealing to kids. It's a tough call. It seems like a very divided audience here.
I like Firestar better.
Yeah.
And I like Sally better, and I like Caroline better. And I like most of these characters better than I like Maude.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm glad they found a way to give Maude a showcase episode.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's hard to deny Maude.
It is.
I mean, right on.
Yeah. She's a force of nature, and Firestar manipulates the forces of nature, though.
Yes.
So that's a good thing, too.
Right, yeah.
Sounds like you're leaning Maude.
I guess I am. I feel bad for Firestar. She went through so much.
She did, but she's got good friends.
I mean, she maybe killed her ex-boyfriend.
Right. She's got a good support group. And I do kind of like the way she deals with Spider-Man and Peter and Bobby, who can be a little dopey sometimes.
Yeah.
I think she'll be okay. Well, I mean, let's face it. Maude is as up and down as we were in the show. It really wouldn't be anything without B. Arthur.
This is true.
B. Arthur is Maude.
So we're going with B. Arthur?
I think we are, yeah. B. Arthur.
Wow, that was more agonizing than I thought.
Yeah, boy. And I think things still haven't settled down here at the venue.
No.
Ooh.
Gonna get worse.
All right, well, I guess I'm up now with, oh my gosh. Oh, how are we going to determine this one, Mike? All right, we've got Outstanding Supporting Male, and wait till you see these names. We got Fred Astaire from the Easter Bunnies coming to town again. We got John Astin from Macmillan and Wife.
Hey.
We got William Hopper from Perry Mason. We've got Victor French, already an award winner tonight for Little House on the Prairie. Kevin Hagen, the beloved Doc Baker from Little House on the Prairie. And Jeff Goldblum for It's Gary Shandling Show. Wow, we've got a couple of previous winners here. Multiple previous winners.
Oh, boy.
Oh, well, good luck with this one, whoever. Oh, wait a minute, that's me. Oh, yeah, jeez.
Well, I like the doc on Little House, and he did some fine work with the frostbite and giving some hard truths and calming people down.
Yeah.
But he wasn't like a prominent character either.
I think that's fair. It was, I mean, if it's a non-doc episode, like an episode not built around him, then this is probably as good as you're going to get from him, or as much as you're going to get from him, but still, it was relatively small compared to some of the other ones.
Yeah.
Including fellow nominee Victor French.
John Astin, we both loved his performance.
Yes, Sykes.
Now the question is, will his quirky performance and Jeff Goldblum's quirky performance cancel each other out?
Ooh.
They don't yet for me, but
No, they don't, but it's something to consider.
Fred Astaire did his usual laid-back work as the postman there on the Easter Bunny special, and William Hopper.
Well.
No one plays indignant better than William Hopper.
Certainly not. And he's always good on Perry Mason.
Yes, but he's Burger, right?
William Hopper is Drake.
Oh, Drake. Oh,
William Tallman is Burger.
I take that back. William Hopper, nobody plays weary but laid back better
Yes.
than William Hopper.
I mean, he's indignant at, giving up,
A sandwich.
yes.
Who wouldn't be?
Yes.
But he rolls with the punches.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, he's great, and Victor French is great as Edwards. And, was able to do some drama and some comedy in that episode.
That's right.
And he didn't favor us with old Dan Tucker, so it points to that.
It's like, a pitcher that gets by without his 100-mile-per-hour fastball, when he has to use other things in his repertoire, and he still can get batters out. Very impressive.
Oh, so what do you think?
I kind of see a similarity in that, like Nita Talbot, John Astin was somebody we came on and we assumed that he was like, oh, this must be like a regular character, or is he a regular? And it turns out he really wasn't, but he was so memorable in this that you wanted him to be a regular regular character. And I put a lot of stock into that. However, I think the competition's a little bit stronger here. So we've got some really good supporting actors who made their marks here. Now, Goldblum is such a unique presence in this, and we've already talked about that. I mean, you could reward him for that too, for coming on and just making such a memorable episode. I agree with you in eliminating Kevin Hagen. I would probably have to eliminate John Astin, maybe. But you know what? I made a good argument for Nita Talbot earlier, so maybe I should not do that.
Don't be hasty.
Well, and with Paul Drake, I'm having the same kind of situation as I did with Della, where it's kind of hard to distinguish what he did in a given episode. But if we were going on body of work, he would certainly be up there.
He went to Fresno.
Yes, he does a lot of his work off camera.
He did do more legwork in that episode than some.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always glad to see him share scenes with Perry and just, complain about something or report his findings even. Fred Astaire, maybe I would eliminate him because he's kind of the narrator, and I don't know if he's supporting in the traditional way we're doing other things. We've given him a lot of praise tonight. He was very good, but I could eliminate him.
And for him, he was treading familiar ground.
Yes.
Granted, William Hopper was too. There's something different in having a weekly role too. Right. Coming back and doing essentially the same thing you did before.
I think to me one of the big things is how do you plus we've got two performances that we've already acknowledged, Victor French and Jeff Goldblum in different ways. Mm-hmm. Do we reward them again? I mean, I know you don't want to think about you try not to think about what they've already won or they don't deserve. It should be, do you deserve this as best supporting male or not?
Well, if Goldblum was truly just being Goldblum, is he acting? I mean, he's reading lines. I don't know. I don't want to punish him for being able to play himself well.
We've talked before in this category, too, about being in service to the lead and how they complement them. And, maybe that should be a factor here as well. That doesn't really eliminate anybody.
No, that doesn't help at all. So far, we've only gotten rid of two people, right?
Yes, Kevin Hagen.
And Fred Astaire.
That's
right, we got rid of Fred Astaire.
Yes. I think I could probably eliminate Victor French.
Okay.
Nothing against him, loved it, but I kind of feel like we rewarded his facial hair. That was good, but we got to eliminate somebody.
Right, yeah.
And then it comes down to, a regular and two memorable guest spots. One, a true supporting male, and one who, if you were looking at it, like stepping back from it, almost the co-lead of the episode, Jeff Goldblum. Three different types of performances here.
I'm leaning John Astin.
Really?
I think for the same reasons. I mean, he wasn't as crucial to the story as she was, but he was so good in the scenes that he had.
You know what? In support of that, as I think about it, what was he doing? He was doing a lot of police scientist stuff that could be boring, stuff that could be dull, and he was engaging with the other actors. He made it interesting and helped move things along, which does support him as being outstanding supporting male. You might be onto something here, Mike.
Nothing against these other guys.
No, certainly not. I like that. I like John Astin in that one because I'm thinking back and how much we like that, and the more I think about it, I really like that performance. And I like the idea of voting for someone you wished was on the show more. All right. Wow.
Well, only 3 more nominated awards, and then, of course, our special award.
Ah, yes.
And only one more award that doesn't include everything.
That's right.
That is Outstanding Male, Fred Rogers from Mr. Rogers. About time he showed up here.
Yeah.
Michael Landon from Little House on the Prairie. Darren McGavin from Kolchak.
Oh.
Rock Hudson from Macmillan and Wife. Gary Shandling from It's Gary Shandling Show.
Oh.
And Raymond Burr from Mason. Oh.
This is difficult. I'm telling you right now, throw out the timer. You might as well just have the timer go off because we're going to need it. Boy. Okay, initial thoughts here. Is there anybody that I can eliminate? Honestly, maybe there is. I liked all these performers. They all carry their shows. Mm-hmm. It's unthinkable having these series without them, and I think they created memorable characters. The least memorable character on this list is, in my opinion, it's clearly Macmillan.
Yeah.
I would eliminate Rock Hudson for that. And again, it's no slight. We talked about how much we enjoyed the show and him on it, but yeah, I'm not going to do it here.
Yeah, and just I could give him compliments where they're due. He played a pretty good range of stuff in that episode.
Yes.
But not as memorable as the others.
Now, the next one I would personally eliminate, might be a little bit of a surprise too. It would be Michael Landon. Michael Landon did everything on Little House, and I mean everything. Directing, producing, writing, acting. And he was...
Clean the porta potties.
Yes. He carried NBC during our beloved dark years of NBC.
Right.
He was the biggest star of the network, but probably behind Johnny Carson, as we mentioned. But I could probably see eliminating him and Gary Shandling, actually.
Oh.
As much as I love Gary Shandling, a lot of what's going on in Gary Shandling is writing and Gary, the creative talent. And I think that's what's going on with Michael Landon, too. Whereas I'm looking at this category and I'm looking more at the performance aspect of it and the on camera. The one that stands out to me that jumps out as something, a point I want to make is, and I'll let you talk about some of the other ones, Mike, is Darren McGavin is the one on this list who I think, well, actually, there's maybe a couple on this list. Darren McGavin actually elevates the material in a big way. And I think Raymond Burr could be said to do that on Perry Mason as well. But I would think McGavin gets a lot of credit because he really is that show. Those are my initial thoughts.
I guess Fred Rogers would fit it kind of in the same way, the same category as Landing. Gary Landing and
Michael Shandling.
Michael Shandon. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, as those guys. Because he's the creative force behind that show.
And I realize that's kind of unfair reasoning in a sense. It sounds like I'm penalizing these guys for being multi-talented. That's just kind of what jumps out at me as I try to narrow this down. I don't even feel... I feel pretty good about maybe removing Rock Hudson for now, but anybody else I could be talked into. I don't even feel that strong about taking out Landon and Shandling and even, Rogers.
Yeah, Landon did good work in that episode.
He did.
Got across that steely emotion at the end.
And he had to give the Bible reading at the end.
And, of course, Raymond Burr is great in that role. As you said, kind of elevates the material. McGavin elevates the material. Shandling is Shandling. Again, he's sort of... On that show, he's pretty much just his comedian persona.
Right.
Which is very funny, but he certainly matured as an actor later.
Yeah. And Shandling, the overall creative talent, gets points for letting Goldblum and Burt Convy get laughs on his own show. Yes. And it's possibly hurting him now as we consider the baddies. But
I mean, he probably delivered our favorite line of the whole season.
That's right. You see this one coming?
Yeah. I think let's eliminate those two just to narrow it down.
Landon and Gary...
Yes.
Gary Landling and Michael Shandberg.
Right, yeah.
Okay. All right, so that leaves us with Fred, Darren, Raymond Burr. As much as I like Kolchak and I love Darren McGavin, part of me is thinking, well, is the show really as good as some of these other shows?
Right.
And that's kind of like holding me back from totally wanting to lean Darren McGavin.
Try as he might. I find it hard, honestly. I'm looking at find it hard to vote against the presence and magnetism of Fred Rogers. Much in the same way I think Letterman won this category, didn't he?
David Letterman?
Yeah.
I don't remember offhand.
Oh, okay.
But it's possible.
Maybe somebody in the crowd will tell him.
Yeah. I seem to be contributing in all kinds of other ways.
Yeah, I don't know how, Philadelphians feel about Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, he's kind of
Pittsburgh.
Other side of the state.
Yeah. But he's Mr. Rogers.
Right.
So I think that would be my lean right now, but I could be convinced.
That is interesting. Boy.
It was just I just feel bad about voting against him.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he would care.
No.
He's happy with who he is.
He is. And he's happy with who we are, too.
That's right, even if it's voting against him. He would probably see it as voting for one of the other people.
That's right. That's true. It's a tough call. So were you limited to Darren McGavin?
I can.
Yeah, well, I mean, McGavin's so good. Sometimes Kolchak is when it's at its best, it's really good because of McGavin. It might really be tough without him. Could you say the same about, I don't know. Fred Rogers would be kind of an unconventional choice.
Like in the case of if you're rewarding people for elevating the material, which is a good quality, but are you also rewarding them or are you not rewarding someone for being in something good? Like you're almost rewarding them because they're in something that's...
I see. You're giving them extra credit.
I mean, I think Perry Mason's better than okay, but
yeah,
Kolchak is certainly a spotty show. And I mean, it potentially could work with someone else, but I don't know if it would. And then Raymond Burr is a definitive Perry Mason as far as I'm
even more than Monty Markham.
Yes.
Well, yeah, and Fred Rogers, I mean, in this episode, he didn't have a lot of showy scenes, but when does he ever really?
Yeah.
You know what you're going to get with all three of these guys. Pretty much in each episode. They never disappoint you. And, boy, this is tough.
And remember, he's also doing puppet voices.
Ooh, including
King Friday and XCO. And operating the trolley.
That's right. I mean, this is kind of stuff that, again, do you give Michael Lennon credit for, for all the stuff he did? It's a good case. I'm leaning towards Fred Rogers now too, and I hate to say it, but I think part of it's kind of just it's easier because he's so much different than what McGavin and Burr are doing that it makes it easier to choose the one that's most different.
Sure. Well,
I'd feel good about that though.
Okay.
Fred Rogers.
Yeah.
All right, Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers.
Yes.
Wow.
And I feel in a way that's a sideways award for Tom Hanks too. Because he played him.
Very sideways.
He didn't even get nominated.
That's really sideways. But yeah, okay.
Oh, well, the Bosom Buddy. They did get win that one award. But otherwise, okay. So
well, we're at best episode.
Best episode. Who's reading this?
Let's see. Me. I think I am.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Am I?
I don't know.
Yes, I read the Outstanding Supporting Female.
Okay, supporting female.
Supporting female, yes.
Which means you also did the supporting male.
Yes.
Okay, go for it.
Best episode. So this is talking specifics here. So the Easter Bunny is coming to town, which, was a special. What is Love, which was the episode of Mr. Rogers that we talked about. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, the X-Men Adventure, which was a listener-suggested episode, I will point out. Maud's musical. Bob Hope's All-Star Comedy Spectacular from Lake Tahoe, which was sort of peripherally or sideways suggested by Gino, another listener. Bosom Buddies, Water Balloon Gate. Little House on the Prairie, Blizzard. Kolchak, Werewolf. And Kolchak was a friend of the show. John suggested we get into Kolchak. Macmillan and Wife, Cop of the Year. High School USA, which was a TV movie chosen by our listeners from a selection of teen-themed high school movies. It's Gary Shandling Show, Go-Go Goldblum. And Siskel and Ebert, which was Batman, Ghostbusters 2, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and Kung Fu Fighter, the Agnes Varda art film that they reviewed in that episode.
Right.
Whew. So there you have it. It's basically everything we talked about. What was the best?
My head is this is less difficult than some of those previous categories.
And maybe the next one.
Yes. I feel like this, to me, there's one winner, hands down.
One winner, hands down. Yep, okay. I think I know where you're going, but feel free to go through and eliminate some if you want.
Okay. Well, Easter Bunny, High School USA, one, they're not episodes, but two, I don't think they're quite up there. Or the Bob Hope special.
Okay, I'll go along with that.
Kolchak, I think we can. Darren McGavin, great. Nita Talbot, great. Dick Gautier, pretty good. But it was kind of silly.
Story of Dick Gautier's life. Everybody else great. Dick Gautier, pretty good.
Pretty good. And the material is kind of silly.
Yes.
Blizzard was a good Little House episode, but I don't think it was the best thing we watched.
Right.
Maud, I think we've talked about the good and maybe the bad of that. The X-Men Adventure, love it, but quality, sure, it's pretty good for. I got nothing against it.
We didn't choose it because we thought it was the best episode of Spider-Man.
But it's fun. I guess for me the ones that stand out would be Macmillan and Wife, Gary Shandling Show, and I guess the Siskel and Ebert was pretty fun. I could maybe eliminate that too.
Yeah, we eliminated the Mr. Rogers episode.
I didn't, but
I think I would probably.
Yeah, it's good though. Again, I'm not trying to. Most of these I'm not dumping on.
Right.
Maybe some of them. But just to me, the standouts would probably be Macmillan and Wife, mostly because of all the John Shuck magic, and Gary Shandling Show because that was just great, hilarious.
Yeah. So
and Siskel and Ebert again. We can leave that. We can.
Well,
very entertaining also.
So like the Bosom Buddies episode, Water Balloon Gate, I would eliminate that just because if you're talking about that in a comedy, I would rather watch Go-Go Goldblum again. So that makes it easy for me to get rid of Bosom Buddies. The Siskel and Ebert and Macmillan and Wife, I look at similarly in the sense that like we watched a bunch of episodes of those before doing the podcast, and of each of those, like they actually stood out as like, okay, these ones, and not just because like we didn't necessarily pick them because we thought they would be that good, but they wound up being and still remain some of the best episodes, maybe the best episode of each that we watched.
Right.
The best regular episode of Siskel and Ebert, and probably my favorite Macmillan and Wife episode that I've seen. So I'm glad. I like keeping them in consideration because I think that's really important. However, Go-Go Goldblum, it's a great episode. We loved it so much. I'm assuming that's the one you were kind of pointing to as the clear winner.
Yeah.
I remembered watching it when it was first on, and I still remembered like specific lines and moments. And watching it again, it brought it all back to me, and it still holds up. It was really funny, and I was encouraged. We got some nice comments, I think, and some feedback. I think people like really enjoyed the fact that we did that series and that particular episode. I think hit with some of our listeners as well. So with all that said, I guess I would lean towards It's Gary Shandling Show, Go-Go Goldblum too. One of the best episodes of, I think, one of the best shows of its time, and hard to vote against that.
It really is. Okay, that was a little easy.
Yeah, I guess it was, wasn't it? Wow, okay.
But the last one could be more difficult.
I think it could be.
Because we're talking, this is the best show. So our impression overall of the whole show.
Yes. Again, not the episode and show as far as like our doing, but
right.
The show as it actually was.
Yes. So pretty much everything is up for grabs here. It looks like the movie and the special were not included in this, or the two specials. So I guess, yeah, because since they're singular events. So Mr. Rogers, Neighborhood, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, Maud, Siskel and Ebert, Perry Mason, It's Gary Shandling Show, Kolchak, The Night Stalker, Macmillan and Wife, Bosom Buddies, and Little House on the Prairie.
Well, I think we certainly enjoyed different things of all these shows. I think it's pretty easy to eliminate stuff based on even just what we said on the podcast about some of the relative inconsistencies of some of the shows. So, if we want to say anything about them, we can. However, I think we can eliminate Maud. I think we can eliminate Bosom Buddies. And I think we can eliminate Kolchak right away.
Yeah.
And also Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, which, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed watching that. And I want to thank again James and his daughter for recommending that because, boy, what a fun time it was watching it. But it's not quite the winner in this category, I don't think. I would also eliminate Mr. Rogers from this one. A good show, but again, it's a show best sampled occasionally, and I think that should go into consideration. That I wouldn't necessarily be able to watch like a bunch of those at a time.
But a classic.
Yes.
Also a classic Little House.
Yes. Now, okay, so I would eliminate McMillan and Wife because there's some the longer episodes are a little draggier. So looking at my list, that leaves us with Siskel and Ebert and their various incarnations. I think we can consider all of those like at the movies, whatever. Perry Mason, It's Gary Shandling Show, and Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah.
To me, let's see, that's what 4 shows. All of them are very watchable, and all of these are shows that I have continued watching after we did the podcast of them, except It's Gary Shandling Show, and the only reason is because I watched them all before. Now, one thing I will say before yielding to my distinguished colleague is It's Gary Shandling Show, I did talk about how like the first 2 or 3 seasons of it were some of the best television ever, and the 4th season really dropped off for me. So there is that. The whole body of work isn't there as much, but it's had so many excellent episodes that I still would put it against something like Little House on the Prairie, which had 200 some episodes, but I'm sure not all of them were brilliant. But I wouldn't call Little House on the Prairie the best show, but I have to give it credit in the sense that there's just something very watchable about it for me. I just, it's easy for me to sit down and watch it. And same with Siskel and Ebert, which I talked about, I think was comfort food for me at the beginning of the year. Continue to enjoy and get new things out of watching reruns of that. And Perry Mason has become kind of like a new, like almost weekly routine for us too. So 4 great shows. What do you think, Mike?
In general, I agree with what you're saying. I think if I were to narrow it down a little bit, I would take out Little House. I think the other 3 are shows that delight me.
Yes.
Just watch. Even just thinking about them amuses me, or makes me feel good in some way. So I haven't seen those latter day episodes of Shandling, so I can't totally pass judgment on it that way. Of course, I haven't seen every Perry Mason or every Siskel and Ebert. I mean, how could you?
No. Well,
But
Siskel and
you
Ebert,
know what you got. They were consistent with what they did.
They had basically the same format, but it is a little confusing in the sense that they had so many. They had like 3 or 4 different versions of essentially the same show, but they had the PBS version, the Disney, the Tribune syndication, and they tinkered with little things, and which maybe maybe makes it a little bit harder to consider it as a whole.
But the core element, them talking about movies.
Yeah, and I'll say this about Siskel and Ebert too: is it's quote unquote just a movie review show, but while I'll sit down and when I'm watching, I'll pick for specific themes or movies. But I think you could pick any random episode of Siskel and Ebert from like any year that they were on, and I'd be entertained by it. I think regardless of what the movies were, and that's not something you can say about every TV show.
And Perry Mason loved Perry Mason.
With Perry Mason and It's Gary Shandling Show, you get in Shandling's a series that subverts and mocks formula, and Perry Mason, a show that we talked about, like embodies formula, but is one of the best examples of brilliantly executed formulaic TV.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Perry Mason would also be unprecedented because it's only happened twice, but to have a 60s show win Best Show.
Yes.
I don't want to hold that against it. I mean, because Siskel and Ebert, technically went on past our time limit.
There's something about it that seems, this is just like an inherent bias, I guess, but there's something that seems sort of odd about voting Siskel and Ebert in this category. I'll say this, and this is one reason why maybe despite my misgivings about the 4th season, the last episodes, with Gary Shandling, just think about the individual episodes that stand out to us. Perry Mason is almost like, and again, this isn't necessarily knock, but it's like the impressions of like moments in the series as a whole, whereas, as I said earlier, like individual episodes blur together for me, and it's hard to describe, like in a way that no other show does for me. But it's harder for me to remember if I've seen a specific episode until I really drill down into the plot and everything with Perry Mason, just because of the formula nature of it. Whereas Gary Shandling, I mean, we talked about episodes we watched. Now, granted, we had just been watching them, but specific things, and it has more memorable episodes to it. And I think the highs of Gary Shandling are higher than anything else on the list. And I'm not going to penalize it too much for the lows, because, like I said, it was brilliant for so long. So,
and all 3 of these shows, we could say, inspired other things. But It's Gary Shandling Show not only did that through the show, but through the people who worked on the show. It's another one of those kind of things, like St. Elsewhere, where people went on and did more. It carried on the spirit of it in The Simpsons and other things.
Yeah, excellent point. And it's a celebration in its way of television, which we kind of like to do here on Battle of the Network shows.
Yeah.
Siskel and Ebert is a TV show about movies, but it's a really great TV show about movies. It's great television. They really hit on something there.
Yeah, and I think it has in common with Mr. Rogers, that hitting on a great way to use television to communicate something specific, and having, in the case of that show, 2 great personalities to get that across.
Right.
But then, of course, that Scary Shanley show is doing that in its own way, too.
I have strong sentimental feelings for all 3 of these. Siskel and Ebert, like I said, it was comfort food when, towards the beginning of the year when, just going through some tough stuff and, everything worked out okay. But dealing with that. Gary Shandling, I remember watching it with my dad and just watching these for the first time in Laughing So Hard, and Perry Mason because I'm watching it right now with Lori, and enjoying it. So I lean it's Gary Shandling's show, but I think you can make a case for any one of them.
That's where I'm leaning to.
Yeah.
Clearly, the fans are leaning that way, too.
Yeah, you can hear it. Yeah, they're vocal. Well, it's Gary Shandling's show. I think that's good. I think it kind of epitomizes what we do. And
pretty big winner in this. I mean, Gary Shandling did not win much, but...
No, he didn't, did he?
But Goldblum, the episode, the show, those are big wins.
Wow. Winning Best Episode and Best Show doesn't happen as often as you might think. So that's the double feature of like the 2 highest awards. Congratulations to It's Gary Shandling Show.
Yes. And that leaves us with our favorite award, the Robert Pine Genius Award.
Yes, Mike, it's my turn to read it, but I wonder maybe one of us could introduce the award and one of us could announce the winner.
Okay.
It might be a fair way to do it.
Yeah, I'll introduce the award. So, this is named after one of our favorites, Robert Pine, and specifically his Dolan character in the Lowenbrow commercial, who's a genius. And it's meant to reward actors who are usually actors. We've had a writer to maybe lesser known, supporting actors, character actors who bring something special to the table whenever they appear, but also when they appeared specifically in our season. And just shine a spotlight on people who maybe don't get the spotlight all the time. And in this case, the winner is?
The winner is John Schuck, for his role as Enright on McMillan and Wife. And I think longtime listeners of the podcast will not be surprised to hear this. They may have been wondering earlier why he wasn't in some of the other categories, but he's the Robert Pine Genius Award and richly deserved.
Yes. And I think maybe he was really the singular choice this season. Sometimes it's a little tougher.
Yeah, this is a no-brainer. We almost, in many ways, the story of the season was John Schuck. We wanted to get John Schuck in last season. For reasons we explained in our Munsters episode, we were not able to do Munsters today, but we still had that nagging feeling of wanting to feature John Schuck, so we went to McMillan and Wife, and then we selected an episode that was spotlighting John Schuck and his character on that, and we got to it, and the episode delivered even beyond our expectations, and John Schuck was brilliant in it. Yeah, he really a great member of the Pantheon, along with, Robert Pine himself. He's kind of genius emeritus. Leonard Lightfoot, Ed Flanders, Michael Conrad, Jeffrey Scott. John Amos. We're probably leaving some out.
Flaherty? Joe Flaherty?
Yes, Joe Flaherty, last season, I believe, yes. These are just, the one thing is, like, anytime you see one of these Genius Award winners, you think, all right, this is going to be something worth watching. And boy, I can't imagine Schuck being in something and not being interesting, at least when he's on camera. So
the guy who does drama, comedy, musicals, has played Klingons and various Star Trek aliens.
Robert Altman movies,
said a word we can't say on our show, in MASH, and filled Herman Munster's very large shoes.
Yes.
We're not sure how well, but presumably a decent job.
That speaks very well to the versatility of him, and also there's just some essential likability about him that I think is kind of something that you see in a lot of these Genius winners too. They're just, it's really like, and it's not a forced like, the Enright character is very likable. He's written that way, and he's written as loyal, but Schuck brings something to it that really makes that character so likable. So he deserves as much credit as the show in general does.
Just his portrayal of a man boiling corn.
Yes.
And don't forget he played a robot.
That's right.
And, of course, participated in Battle of the Network Stars.
Yeah.
So all sorts of things.
I hope this won't be the last season that he's featured on the podcast in some capacity. I kind of would like to have some potatoes and corn right now to celebrate this, to go along with the cheesesteaks and the soft pretzels.
Dark.
Yes.
But yeah, congratulations to him and all our winners, and to you for sitting through all this.
Yes.
And we'll be right back with season 11 soon. And we need a little rest.
We do.
A little reset.
The podcast season is draining, but the baddies themselves can be draining. We take this responsibility very seriously, determining, who has the best facial hair in a given season of our podcast. And hopefully, maybe you don't agree with all our choices, but hopefully you understand our reasoning, and hopefully you enjoyed being here with us. And, sincere thanks again to everybody for making this a great season and for participating, whether it be through the webpage, through the Facebook group. We love to have you. And another thing is we love to have ideas for future shows to cover too. So feel free to send those in. And another great baddies.
Yeah. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon. Goodbye, Philadelphia.
This episode brought to you by Ever Ready Batteries. This episode also brought to you by Brotherly Love. This episode also brought to you by Season 11, coming soon. Join us next time for another exciting episode of Battle of the Network Shows. Learn more, leave feedback, and suggest future episodes at battleofthenetworkshows.com. Follow us on Twitter at BatNetShows, and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Battle of the Network Shows.